The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Scott Norton, and you're listening to Keepin' It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll discuss the departure of Kazuchika Okada and cover all its news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the network's podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/social suplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. So, young boy, what do you want to talk about? You're on mute.
Oh my God. I was on mute and you didn't catch my laugh. I was going to make literally the same joke as you and you fucking stole it. It's not like anything crazy is going on in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. So, I mean, it's going to be a light show this week, guys. You know.
I think we need to open up talking about Tama Tonga. Speculate.
I would like to talk about the Be Fit match for the KOPW title between oh man. I feel like I don't know why my voice just cracked there. I feel like this is gonna be in the history books, not just one of obviously this is a monumentous moment and occasion of what's going on in history with Pro Rezu and New Japan and wrestling in general, but for this show is probably one of the most important shows we've ever done. And if you notice, we've been kind of noticeably quiet on, social media regarding this issue. I don't know, Jeremy. I didn't feel the need like a lot of, and I'm not throwing shade, but I felt like, everybody and their mother felt like they needed to rush to the microphone and get their hot takes out there and react as quickly as possible about this, and nothing wrong with that. It's a very emotional announcement, the departure from New Japan Pro Wrestling of Kazuchika Okada. But for me, it struck me in a way where I was like, damn, I need to sit on this for a little bit, kind of collect my thoughts, kind of analyze the situation, give myself a little bit of breathing room so that we can, give, accurate coverage and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, like I like to save all my takes as much as possible for the show. I mean, that's what people that tune in for, they listen to, every week. They come to hear, our ratings, takes, and opinions. So yeah, a lot of times I'm not always on X or Twitter, shooting off my opinions and thoughts. And like you said, no offense to anybody who did that. Obviously, it's a very big story, very emotional story, and so I get people wanting to, jump out, get their thoughts out, do their emergency podcast. But for me, I was like, I want to sit on it for a while. I want to chew on it. I want more info to come out, because I don't want to do emergency podcast and then his official signing to AEW or WWE happens the next day, and it's old news. So right. I'm glad that we kind of set back, wait, kind of let more information get out there, more reporting get out there, and even comments from Okada, Tanahashi, and Tokyo Sports. So I think we have a little bit more context, a little bit more details, and so we can kind of accurately assess the situation, kind of give our feeling to talk about it.
Yeah. One thing I just want to get out of the way before we continue. This news dropped Thursday evening here in North America. I guess that by that point it was Friday morning for those over in Japan. But I had my Series 65 exam the following day, and I'm getting ready to go to bed early, and I'm sitting on the John. And I'm scrolling through my phone, and then like I'm literally getting ready for bed, and then suddenly like I just see the black and white logo, and I was like I was in there alone, and I like shrieked. I was like, "Oh no!" And my girlfriend was in the other room. She's like, "What happened?" And I'm like, "Oh no!" And I'm like, I'm sitting there in disbelief, like reading over this over and over again. I'm like, this can't be real. Like, yeah. So, and then I'm sitting there thinking, like, I gotta, take this test tomorrow, and gotta get in the right headspace. Luckily, just so everybody knows, and I this is unrelated, I did pass my Series 65. So I have now obtained my 6, my 63, my 65, and the SIE. So, as soon as a position with my company opens up, I am fully licensed to be a financial advisor. The good news for this show, that means I'll be making more money. And it means I'll be spending less time studying for fucking tests that, a lot less stress in life.
Yeah, man, big congratulations on that. I know you've been studying and taking tests for a long time now, and something you've been pouring a lot of hard work on. And you know that it's serious when you're taking time away from wrestling, because as far as I've known you, your free time, you're making lists, you're doing rankings, you're like you're in the wrestling world. So I know
it's called autism is what that's called.
No, man.
Then as soon as I passed the test, right? So I'm like, I can't focus on this. I got to tune this out. Got to get in the zone. And then I passed the test. I'm like, fuck. And I'm like so happy. And then I get back to my car and I open up my phone, and then I have to face the realization that I'm facing the reality of a, sans Okada, New Japan Pro Wrestling. And like, I was like, what the fuck am I going to do? What am I going to say about this one when the time comes to record this episode? So yeah, wild shit.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I was home Thursday night with the wife. She has me watching This Is Us.
I heard that was whack.
It is what it is. Kind of this rom-com-y, drama-y kind of show, whatever. She watches Dynamite with me. I'll watch her little, show, whatever. And so we're watching that, and yeah, the black and white logo comes up on X. The group chat starts firing up. The Discord starts going off. I'm like, no, this can't be. Like, I was shocked. Like, I know we speculated on him being with Barry Bloom, and then last week we talked about him trademarking Rainmaker, and we're like,
it's not a good sign.
That don't look good. Why else would he trademark Rainmaker in the U.S.? And so, I mean, we kind of had a feeling it was happening, and then the bomb just dropped.
Yeah, I feel like this is a very multifaceted thing to discuss. There's a lot to talk about: his legacy, what this means for the future of New Japan Pro Wrestling, the booking implications, kind of a retrospective of creative from the past year, what his two major decisions, AEW versus WWE, look like. How does New Japan pivot and react to all this? And there's just a lot to kind of unload here. I know we got a lot of questions, so I'm going to kind of rest on you to guide us through this thing, because I don't even know where to start.
All right, well, let's start with reading some of the news updates that came out. So it was announced Thursday night that Kazuchika Okada would be leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling when his contract expires at the end of January. His next destination has not been revealed. Sports Illustrated reported that the 36-year-old Okada was seriously entertaining the idea of signing with WWE or AEW. So New Japan posted on their site, Kazuchika Okada will be leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling after the conclusion of his contract January 31st. We apologize to fans for the abrupt nature of the announcement, but join them in wishing Okada the very best in his future. And then Okada said, I have nothing but gratitude for having been a part of New Japan Pro Wrestling since 2007, and for NJPW bringing me from a 19-year-old kid off the plane in Mexico to the Rainmaker I am today. Thank you to the best of companies in NJPW, to the best of opponents that I've been able to face here, and to the best of fans that have cheered and booed over the years. I promise to make it rain in every match I have left, so keep watching. And so after that, we saw some shifting of the cards for the New Beginning tour. Okada, like we mentioned, his contract's up January 31st. His final appearances will be February 11th in Osaka, and then the 23rd and 24th in Sapporo. So he's actually technically going to be, quote-unquote, a freelancer for those February dates because his contract ends the 31st. So on January 24th, Okada will have his last New Japan match in Korakuen Hall, where he will defend the Never Openweight 6-man Tag Team Championships, which was originally supposed to happen at New Beginning in Osaka. So Team Hall of Fame will defend against TMDK, Kosei Fujita, Mikey Nichols, and Shane Hayes on January 24th in Korakuen Hall. And then,
is that the same team that they were slated to face, or was Zach supposed to be?
No, it was always Fujita, because that was the angle they shot at New Year's Dash, with Vegeta kind of getting in Okada's face and Okada being like, you're not ready, kid. Right. So that match was New Beginning Osaka. That's now happening this coming up week on the road to New Beginning, Korakuen Hall, January 24th. And then February 11th, New Beginning Osaka, the new match is going to be Okada versus Tanahashi, and potentially one of Okada's last singles matches, and the last singles match between Okada and Tanahashi, which will be the 12-year anniversary from the Rainmaker shock, the first time they faced off, same city, same building. So kind of a poetic moment there. And then, like I mentioned, he will have 2 final appearances in the New Beginning in Sapporo, which caps off the tour, which will be February 23rd and 24th. So more details will come for that. The Observer is reporting that WWE and AEW have both made offers to him. We've been hearing different things, and it seems like at one point, like, WWE was a really strong front runner, but then, Tony Khan's been tweeting, 2024 is going to be a great year. He's been posting memes, and sounds like there's an AEW offer that's good, and there are people in AEW who think that they have him. There have been people who are close to him that just say he just honestly doesn't know what he wants to do, where he wants to go. So I guess first, let's just talk about just our general feelings about him leaving and just kind of what this means for New Japan and Pure Rezo as a whole.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say before I even get to that, kudos to the guys over Super J-Cast, because they have actually been discussing this ad nauseum in their Discord channel since probably, I think, late October. Now, I will say, I personally am not a member of that Discord. And it's not because I don't like those guys. Like, I talk to Damon, I talk to Joel. I think they're great guys and they do an awesome show. But for me, it feels like a conflict of interest for me to be in that Discord, getting their scoops. And then, I don't want to be like influenced by what's going on in there and bring that to our show. But I do know that they talk to people in the company, and, they've been saying, going back to October, that this is something that's been a scuttlebutt. They've kind of been, dropping hints on their show and talking to people and letting them know, like, hey, here's where he's at. Here's what we're hearing. Here's what the rumors are. This is the talk. And I feel like a lot of people are not really giving them the just due for having already kind of been hinting at this for, how long is that? November, December, January, like 3-4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time. So kudos to those guys.
Yeah, shout out to them. You know, I am in their Discord, but honestly, I just kind of lurk in there and just kind of see
Nice.
what people say and see when people bury us in there.
Do they?
There was a couple years ago, somebody buried us in there, but I was like, whatever. I didn't even respond. So I'm in the Discord. I'm lurking in there, but I'm not really active.
Fuck that
guy.
I know it's a guy because ladies love kiss.
Ladies love being kissed.
No, but that's funny. What were you saying?
So yeah, I have a hard enough time keeping up with our own Discord and trying to be active in there. So yeah, I wasn't really active in there, but yeah, they have been, you know, kind of pounding the pavement, so to speak, and you know, their deli shop, what the pastrami sandwiches, you know, they've been giving out the details and the hints and the reporting. So yeah, shout out to those guys.
Yeah, that's where you should go if you want the scoops. If you want the good takes, ratings, and opinions, you come here. But you know, for real, credit to those guys for doing the hard work. A lot of people, you know, got caught off guard with this, and like you mentioned, we've kind of seen the tea leaves, but I personally have been one of those individuals that have been looking at all the reasons that I just think logically he would stay. Then the managerial shakeup that just happened recently with ousting of Obari and other officials and bringing in Tanahashi as the new presidential regime. And after that occurred, it sort of seemed to quiet down just until the most recent news about the trademarks. We hadn't heard anything about Okada leaving, and that had seemed to kind of quiet down. And so that gave me a little bit of comfort. And I was like, you know what? Not to say that this wasn't a real threat that could have happened, but I'm glad it's not happening. So I was a little bit more comforted, and I felt like we're moving forward. You look at the booking of New Japan recently. I mean, he beat Danielson, and then he went to Long Beach, or where'd they go? San Jose, and he beat Ospreay, and they did the big send off, you know, boohoo cry thing for Ospreay, and there's no mentions of or any indication that, you know, Okada might be on the way out. The bookings certainly didn't seem to indicate that, so I felt a little bit comfortable in the idea that he's probably sticking around, and whatever that trademark stuff was, has nothing to do with him leaving. I knew it was realistically a possibility. I just didn't believe it. I didn't think he was going to leave. I mean, and part of it is historical precedent. There has never, ever, ever, ever in the history of Japanese pro wrestling been a major ace, a major, you know, front facing. He is the top premier star of the company, much less, you know, expound on that. And let's say he is the biggest star in all of Japanese professional wrestling, period. He is the premier guy in the premier promotion. They have never jumped to an American company, not once. The closest thing that you might be able to point to in recent times is like Nakamura, who was like number 3, maybe number 4 in the company at the time of his jumping. And that was a huge deal. But this is even bigger than that. And I didn't fathom that it would actually happen. But there's a lot of reasons to see that it was a high likelihood. I just didn't think it was really going to happen. So I've been shocked, and I'm still kind of shocked at it. And it's hard to sort of accept that this is what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we kind of saw the hints to the tea leaves, but like you said, historically, it didn't happen. This is not, you know, Western wrestling where top guys jump all the time. Hulk Hogan jumps to WCW, and guys are jumping to WWE and going back and forth. And now, you know, we have WWE and AEW. Like, it's a normal kind of Western thing for you kind of go where the big money's at. You kind of go where you know you're going to get pushed. Whereas, yeah, Japanese wrestling, like, if you are the ace of a company, like, you don't leave unless you die. Like,
right. And I mean, if you look at the last time there was a jump of this magnitude, it would be, you know, Mizawa and the rest of the All Japan roster jumping in 2000 to go form Noah. But this is arguably in some ways a bigger defection than that. And the only 2 bigger times where an ace left a company, they were both death related. That'd be Ricky Dozon when he died at the top of his game in JWA, and when Misawa died in the ring untimely as the ace of Noah. And that's it. And not to say that there haven't been defections, certainly that has occurred in Japanese wrestling history. And we've seen instances where guys have jumped from various Japanese companies, one to another. We've seen big stars go to the West. We just never seen the tip top ace guy of a major company jump. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And that's where it's really shocking.
Yeah, and I know people want to kind of compare this to Shinsuke Nakamura leaving, where it's I guess you can kind of compare it, but the magnitude of this is way bigger than that. At the time, Nakamura was behind Okada. He was behind Tanahashi. You can even argue who was behind Naito and Kenny Omega at that point by the time he was leaving, or at least Naito and Omega were on the rise. And
they were on their rise.
Yeah. And we're going to eclipse him. So, like, he was like at the quote-unquote like number 3 guy leaving, which was still a big deal losing him, but they had the roster ready to slide right up when he was gone, and it wasn't as impactful as like in that time period. Like if Tanahashi or Okada had left, like that would have been huge, but Nakamura leaving is not as big as Okada leaving right now.
It wasn't as big, just from the stance that he wasn't as big a star at that time as Okada is currently. But it also was different because, yeah, his defection along with AJ Styles and the Good Brothers all kind of leaving at the same time is a huge, huge deal. But the company was in a much healthier place when that happened. Like, he had already kind of given the reins of chaos over to Okada. He'd already put over Tanahashi as the winner of their generational feud. He'd already kind of helped, create Kota Ibushi's star and everything like that. And when he left, I mean, they had Jay White, coming back from excursion not too far in the future. Naito's on his ascension. Kenny Omega's on his ascension. There's a lot of guys, elevating, including Shibata and stuff like that, all at the same time. And he kind of could, like you said, could see where things were headed as far as his role in the company was concerned. This is very different. I mean, Okada's leaving at a time where the company is not at its healthiest. Obviously, a lot of that is COVID, post-COVID related. But a lot of Okada's contemporaries have left in recent years, and their bodies have broken down or they've slowed down, and he's not at a place where he has been utilized in the past year or two to put over the next generation. So we don't have that tip top guy ready to go at this moment. The company's kind of on unsteady water, and it's a situation where the booking and creative of this company didn't utilize Okada to get that next generation ready the way that we thought that they were starting to with the him versus the new generation storyline last year. They kind of abandoned that at the middle point of the year. And now it's too late to even do that because, we don't know what his last 2 dates are, but let's say if you do decide to run some sort of angle and put one of those guys over him on the way out, it's going to ring disingenuous. It's going to ring last resort-ish and kind of like last minute shoehorned in there. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to have the same effect as it would have if he had been working with these guys, having singles matches, speaking of like the Reiwa Musketeers and, the young generation that's coming up behind him. And we don't have those guys quite ready. They're going to have to probably figure something out in this next calendar year to get somebody really elevated. But it's just a totally different situation than when Nakamura left.
Yeah, and you mentioned the booking and him not wrestling or putting over the young guys. Like, when you look back at 2023's booking of him, it's very baffling. And I know there are a lot of people kind of speculating and, trying to put their tinfoil hats on to see, how long did the company know that he could potentially be leaving? And what was kind of their game plan? And, based off of some comments that Okada made in Tokyo Sports, it sounded like this past year was the 5th year in a 5-year contract.
Yeah.
So that they knew that, all right, well, at least they should have known this is his last year in the contract. And, normally if you're ace, you follow up and you try to get a new deal on the table and get him signed for 5 more years. And so I feel like, and when you look at the booking pattern, we talked about it, when we do our awards and just kind of how everything went with him. Like, first half of the year, awesome. He's Jumbo Tsuruta. He's feuding with all the Reiwa Musketeers, all the young guys, Kiyomiya, big stuff. Then Forbidden Door happens, and then it's a totally different thing, and he's just doing the Never Six-Man stuff and not really involved in like a super heated program. And it's like, okay, what happened from beginning of the year to then? And then the second half of the year, it just seems like he was kind of on the back burner. So I'm like, all right, did they figure out at some point, all right, like maybe they did offer him something and he's like, I'm not ready to sign. And they're like, oh crap, like maybe he is potentially leaving, which in that case, if you knew that there's a chance that he might leave, why not continue the story of him facing these young guys and then heat them up and have him have matches with these guys, even if you didn't want to beat him. Like, we saw what Ospreay and Umino and Ospreay and Tsuji, like what that did for those guys. Like, if they were able to mix it up with Okada on a big stage in a big main event, that would have helped them greatly. Even though, I think they probably should have won to kind of help elevate them. But even if they lost, like, I think that would still help them kind of going toe to toe with Okada on a big stage. But they didn't do that.
I'll be right back. I'll respond to that in a second. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jeremy. And the funny thing is, we were likening him to Jumbo Tsuruta in that entire instance, and it turns out he wound up being Tenryu instead. Tenryu kind of was the one that facilitated the necessity for them to push the 4 pillars at that time because of his exodus from All Japan Pro Wrestling to go help form Super World of Sport. And that put Jumbo in that situation where he needed to be the big boss for Mizawa and all those guys. And it turns out now, the way that it's looking, that's Naito. Naito's actually the Jumbo in this situation, not Okada. So that's very different than what we kind of anticipated. But, they said that management was first made aware that he wasn't re-signing definitively this past Thursday. But I can't imagine that that's the first time that anybody in the entirety of the company knew about that, just given the fact that there's been all these rumors in the press about him going to AEW to check out the backstage elements and considering everything like that, him having those discussions with Barry Bloom, him trademarking Rainmaker and other likenesses and stuff like that. And then just considering the state of the economy and with the yen being down, and as well Bushiroad's stock portfolio and performance. And you also kind of combine that with what I said earlier, that Super J-Cast, who those guys are great, they do good work, but let's face it, their show and our show aren't necessarily like crack journalism. We're not like the Dave Meltzers or the Justin Barrassos of the world. And even we kind of were hearing hints that this might be happening.
Right. Yeah.
And those guys are talking to people in the company. So if they're hearing it from people in the company, then the talk is already out there. I can't sit here and confirm and say that I know who heard what, who knew what discussions did or didn't take place. I don't know that. But there's no way that they only found out on Thursday for the very first time.
There's no way.
There's no way. Now, granted, they might have been like me, where they were aware that it was a possibility and maybe they were caught by disbelief and they just, expected him to resign. I don't know. We are speculating a bit here, and we're going to have to speculate a bit about what his motivations were as well, because we don't know all the details as we sort of unpack this thing. But I do think that this points to a failure of creative. It points to a failure from management as well, because if you did know at the very least, like you mentioned, as the people who hold the contract when the contract's coming due.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know that it's a contract year and you need to be trying to re-sign your ace and that business has been down and everything like that, then you need to be making preparations at the very least to try and nail things down early. And if you don't, then you need to start making those preparations to potentially exodus this person out of the company in a fitting way that benefits your business. And the booking of Okada, for better or for worse, I have no problem with the way he was used if he was sticking around. I've loved the run that he's been on with Team Hall of Fame in the 6-man tag team titles, but that's pretty much assuming that he is eventually going to be brought back into the fold of the main event scene and utilized to work with this younger talent. And now that that's not happening, it speaks to a huge creative failure from the booking team. It also, when you kind of contrast that with the Sonata title run, the Sonata title run becomes an even much greater failure than it was even just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because this was a guy that you tried it out with, you put the title on him, and you kept the title on him all year long. And there were times throughout the year where it seemed very clear that this was not working, and you stuck to your guns and you continued to go that way. And if there was any indication, like let's say in August, that or June, like around Dominion time, that maybe Okada's not sticking around, then maybe Dave Meltzer was right when he said that they should have pulled the trigger and put the title on Tsuji. Because that would have been, putting the jetpack on somebody and skyrocketing in them. They didn't do that. They kept the title on Sonata all year long. Now, fast forward to where we are, Okada's leaving, and Sonata does not feel like a guy in any way that you can utilize. And I had been thinking that down the line, he would fulfill a gatekeeper role, but that this was my early projections when the title run was going well, that like at the end of the title run, he will be the person that people will have to beat to get to like an Okada or a Naito, and you can do business that way. But his title run has been such a failure that he's no longer a guy that you can use in that way. And now you don't have Okada. So everything just kind of falls on Naito or something else. You're going to have to find out something creatively to do this. And the Sonata title run is an even greater failing, especially if there was any indication by, say, the halfway point of this year that maybe hypothetically Okada might not be sticking around. And at the same time, why weren't we using him to work with the young talent, to get them ready, to build even if it was just one of those guys, but we didn't even get one of them. So now none of them are ready. They've been slow rolling all of them. And this is catastrophic to a certain extent from a booking standpoint. And we're caught with our finger in the dam.
Yeah, and it just really makes the booking baffling, and the whole like going with Sonata, like telling that same story of him winning a New Japan Cup and going to face Okada, like this regurgitated story. You just tweak the ending with Sonata actually winning. It's like, why go with Sonata at this point? Like, there was so many other options. Even if they didn't go for a young guy, like you could have gone with Ospreay, even though Ospreay's leaving. Shingo, like there's Zack Sabre Jr. Like there were so many other options that they could have gone with that would have been more compelling and probably would have ended up being a better reign for the rest of the year. Or go with one of these young guys. I mean, Umino was around for New Japan Cup time. Like they already kind of they want him to be like the next ace. Like have him win New Japan Cup. Have him face Okada at Sakura Genesis. Lose. Later in the year, face off the G1. They get a draw. And then they face off again like in some time in the fall, winter. And Umino wins. So I don't know. Do something. Like there's so many things that they could have done. Even if they wanted to keep Okada out of the title picture, they could have had these kind of singles feuds, him kind of facing off against these young guys post G1.
Well, the 1-2 punch of losing Okada and and Ospreay at the same time is obviously optically it doesn't look good. It's detrimental from just a fan perspective, from a quality standpoint. Two generational talents leaving at the exact same time, that really sucks. But then you look at the creative and the fact that neither of these guys put over anybody on the way out, and they had like one of their last major singles matches against one another. That's again baffling. And I know maybe creative didn't know exactly everything that was how it was going to play out, but you have to wonder, why weren't we using these guys to get these other guys ready? I know you pointed to Ospreay's matches with all that young talent, but he didn't end up putting any of them over. Who he ended up putting over was David Finlay, who is now the de facto top gaijin under Gato's booking for the whole company. And that's right now where we're sitting today in 2024 January. It's a little bit perplexing.
And especially with Ospreay, like they should have seen the way Tony Khan was rolling out the red carpet for him. This man's having a big match at Wembley. He's all over Dynamite. He's a part of Don Callis' family. Like that, there should have been like screaming red lights. Like, all right, Will is not coming back with us next year. Let's switch the booking around. Let's have him maybe put one of these young guys over. How about we have Umino finally beat him after the fourth or fifth time that they wrestled this fall. So yeah, I don't understand what's going on in the office and in the booking. I know a lot of people are like, they need a new booker, and who's it going to be? Like, I don't know who could be the new booker, but I do feel like maybe it is time for Gato to leave.
I've never felt confident that was the case, but in this moment, I do feel confident that that's the case, and I would love for Gato to prove me wrong, but this does create an opportunity. There's a power vacuum and a hole that's being created by the exodus of these guys, and we can point to many times, not even just in the recent history, but throughout the history of New Japan, whether it was Hashimoto or Tiger Mask or Riki Choshu, or there's a lot of guys throughout the history of the company that have left. Like we mentioned, Nakamura, AJ Styles, Kenny Omega. This has happened time and time before, but the difference is we've always had those guys ready to go to fill those spots, and right now New Japan has a wealth of talent that are ready to fill that spot from just a purely raw talent, unadulterated talent standpoint. That's the case. We have a lot of great guys that can be utilized. Where the crisis is basically, for me as a fan, I have not the same level of faith I've had in the past that Gato can be the one to carry us through this period and get those guys over. And I think the main reason I feel that way is because historically, now granted, you can, the one exception to what I'm about to say is when they pulled the trigger on his first month back, and that's Okada. But Okada, when Okada first came back, everyone thought that Gato was crazy and that they were, basically jumping him ahead of guys like Tanahashi and Naito and stuff like that, and it was crazy. But at the same time, Okada's Okada. People had always known that he was earmarked as a blue chipper even before he went away on excursion, right? We don't have an Okada sitting in the wings. What we have is we have a Tsuji, we got a Yumura, we've got a Umino, and those guys are themselves, and they're fantastic, but they're not right now in Okada. And the way that Gato has, the strength of Gato's booking has always been his long-term storytelling. Over years and periods of time, he'll book things out, way in advance, and he tells these sprawling stories, and that's fantastic. But right now, with the way that the wrestling landscape is shaping up, we don't need sprawling stories. We need to put the rocket on some guys and pull the trigger on them and get them over as mega stars in the eyes of the fans. And I don't know if he's ready to do that. I don't know if he has the creative juices and the creative ideas to propel those people into those positions right now. The opportunity is there. I think the guys are waiting and wanting to do that. I think even the diehard fans of New Japan who want to see what a post-Okada New Japan looks like are ready for it. I don't have faith in this creative team right now that they're going to be able to do that. And this is the first time since we've been doing the show where I don't have that faith in Gato to get us through. And I feel like we need something new and fresh.
Yeah, the old saying of this show for a long time was, trust in Gato. Well, I can't trust in Gato here until, like you said, until he proves us wrong. Like you said, the locker room is super talented. They have all those young guys, even the foreigner young guys, the Bull Club War Dog guys, Gabe Kidd, Coughlin, Connors, Drilla. You have all those guys. You have Zack Sabre Jr. You got Shingo. We don't want to really push Riddle, but I mean, he's there. He's a great wrestler. They're bringing in Nick Nemeth. Like they have all these different resources and talents. We've seen the CMLL pool be used more. Like they have access to so many talented guys within their own roster and their partners. They have the talent roster there to move forward. But like you mentioned, we need guys to get over and be stars, because right now the biggest star you have is Naito, and we know the story of Naito's knees.
And his eye.
Yeah, his eye. He had that last eye surgery, which if his eye gets worse, that's it. He can't have another one. So this guy is falling apart. He's your biggest star, and I'm worried what's going to happen by putting all that pressure on Naito. Because now you've lost a draw in Okada, you've lost a draw in Ospreay, and you're going to have to rely on Naito to draw a lot of these houses. He's probably going to have to be in a lot more main events than he probably would have if Okada and Ospreay had stayed.
There's other commodities too that are underutilized that can step into the positions if need be. A guy like Taichi, a guy like Aaron Hanare, Shingo, who has been on the back burner for such a long time and is ready to probably put the company on his back, just like he did during the pandemic. Break glass in case of emergency, pull out Shingo. And that's just to name a few. I'm sure there's others. ELP's waiting in the wings. And you even have like solid workers who can have great matches, like, Yoshihashi, Hiroki Goto. Those guys are there too.
You still got Ishii.
Yeah, you still have Ishii. So, this company does not lack for talent. It's right now, it's like, what creative stories are they going to tell? I do, if it was me, I'm just kind of spitballing here. I think what the company should probably do is, and another thing with how all this is shaken out, putting all those young guys in the A block with each other and not pulling the trigger. Yeah, that in hindsight is such a bad idea. And the way that Kiyomiya has been booked into oblivion over the past year, and him never getting his revenge on Okada, that's also a huge failing.
Yeah, that's another guy. Like, you literally have the ace of the number 2 promotion in your pocket. You could do whatever you want with this guy. You could woo this guy to come over. Can you imagine if they had booked Kiyomiya like a star and actually followed up more of the Okada stuff, have him
there was money,
get to the semifinals of the G1? Like, what if they were able to get him to slide over now? Like, what if he was actually, they treated him like a star and they could have actually like pushed him? All right, let's slide you in this top spot.
But I guess I lost my track of thought there, or train of thought. But basically, I'm not confident in the actual creative at this point in time. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I think what they should do is they should pick 2 guys, whoever those 2 are. I don't know. I mean, most people are probably just going to say Umino and Tsuji, and that's not a bad way to go about it. I think that you should probably push one of those guys, hypothetically, to win a New Japan Cup, and another one of them to win the G1 this year. Mm-hmm. And I think the story of this year is going to be another quote unquote transitional year, where I personally, I didn't see Naito as being a long-term IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Maybe he still won't be. Maybe someone else will need to come in and fill that role, whether that's Shingo or Zack Sabre or something of that nature. But
John Moxley.
Maybe John Moxley. I mean, possibly, depending on who knows. But I think that we're going to need to see who is going to be the guy that can step in and be the ace of this company. And you know what, Jeremy? I can't sit here and say that I am the single most knowledgeable individual when it comes to the history of New Japan. I know a lot, but I'm not like the end all be all. But I can't really think of a time where there's been a break in the succession of aces in this company like this is happening right now. Because when you go back through history, and I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head, yes, Inoki never really put anybody over, but he did the clean tag job to Fujinami in 85. And then he had the hour-long draw with him in 88. And then he never challenged for the title again. And that kind of sent Fujinami off to the races. And it was clear after 88, like 88, that Fujinami was the guy. Fujinami did the clean job to Hashimoto. Hashimoto did the clean job to Muto. Muto, oh my God, I don't know why I'm Kensuke Sasaki, right? Sasaki put over Nagata. Nagata put over Tanahashi, and Tanahashi put over Okada. There might have been some brief liminal spaces where it was a little unclear, but for the most part, we have a pretty clean line of guys putting one another over to establish them as the top star of this company. And with Okada leaving and not having done that on the way out, I can't really recall too many times where it's felt like, oh my God, is who's next? Maybe when I think there might have been a time when Kensuke Sasaki was out with the company and it was unclear if Nagata was for sure going to be the guy, but that's the only time I can think of. Like, we sort of don't have an ace right now, and that's basically uncharted territory for New Japan.
Yeah, it's really weird, and yeah, like I said, the backup gear reserve is Naito. He's top star now, and that's a lot of pressure to put on him with his health. And yeah, just the way this thing is tracked out is just really weird. I mean, yeah, Okada, he's only 36 years old. I mean, he's a guy expected to be there like Suzuki style in his 50s, top star. Like, I expected him to become like a president or some kind of Bushiroad figurehead and kind of be going down to super long. I mean, he's still going to go down as like a legend in New Japan history, but I expect that to be this big, long, Inoki-like thing where he's there for years and years and years. And, 20 years from now, we're complaining about him, still wrestling and being on big shows. And
well, think about all those people that said, LOL, Okada wins. How about it now? Y'all happy?
The LIJ fans are rejoicing, that they finally got what they want, Okada out of the way, so the spotlight's all on Naito.
There's a lot of weird cope with that, though, because some of those same fans hate AEW and they want him to sign with WWE, because of whatever. Like, there's just weird motivations and bad faith acting behind that whole thing. But, with Okada leaving, there are other things that this drudges up. I think that not everybody truly understands how significant a change this is to the wrestling landscape when a star of his magnitude jumps to, the Western market like this. Having just passed my 65, I'm not an economist, but I've learned a bit about the way that the world's economies work. And, it's pretty simple illustration. When one currency, like let's say the dollar hypothetically, strengthens against another foreign currency, like let's say the yen, right? Then the way that works from an import-export standpoint, this is just basic economics, that stronger dollar can buy more things and is worth more in the domestic market of Japan, and our exports to that part of the world declines, and we're importing things from Japan because we can buy more from them. And then it works reverse because their yen has weakened. They're able to export more things to America, but they can't afford to buy as many things from America. And I know that we're kind of quantifying wrestlers like they're a commodity, but that's basically what it is. I'm not saying that money is the only motivator here. I don't know what all of Okada's motivations are, but we do know that these guys all took a pay cut already, a significant pay cuts post pandemic. And now the economy over in Japan has dropped drastically. To give you an example, when I first signed up for New Japan World, there were some months, it's 9.99 yen. There were some months where I was paying 10, 11 something dollars because the yen was stronger at certain points than the dollar.
Yeah.
Right now, there's like periods where I've paid 6 something for my New Japan World subscription because, like $1, and I don't know if this is accurate as of today, but like just recently, like $1 US was like 68 cents yen. That might not sound like a big deal, but we're talking about a 30% drop. So if you are working in New Japan, right, and you're the highest paid wrestler there, but you already took a pay cut, and now the money you're getting paid is worth 30% less than what it was prior, and then you got, Will Ospreay jumping over to AEW. Hey, bro,
come get this bag, bro.
Come get this bag, bro. Look what they paid me, bro. He's like, motherfucker.
I'll show you the real Okada bucks, bro.
But the other concern is we don't know when the bleeding with the economy in Japan is going to stop. And historically in Japanese wrestling, they've always kind of operated under this feudal vassal system where you come up in the dojo and then you have a job for life, and that's just where you stay, and you aren't expected to jump from company to company or even to go anywhere else. Most people, a lot of wrestlers just stay there for the entirety of their careers. With Okada leaving, this sets a precedent where we don't know if this is going to happen again or not. How do we not know that Tsuji doesn't get hot in a year and a half from now? And, hypothetically, Nick Khan or Tony Khan comes calling, and I'm not saying there's a lot to unpack there, but I'm just giving you an example. Mm-hmm. The possibility that this might happen and then thus turning Japan or New Japan into a feeder system for the bigger US branded companies becomes a lot more substantial, becomes a lot more realistic possibility, and poses quite a huge existential threat to what Japanese wrestling even is.
Right. I mean, at this point, nobody is safe. Like, if a star the magnitude of Okada is going to leave, it's open field for anybody. Like, anybody could leave now. Like, if somebody gets hot or it's a top star, Shingo was wrestling Mox, maybe Mox is going to talk to Shingo. Hey, come check this stuff out. Like, anybody that's a top tier level worker or star, it's open field, especially like you mentioned. It's going to take some time for the yen to recover. We don't know how long that's going to take. And so in that time, I mean, these guys, they have families, they got wives, they got kids, they got gimmicks that come in the mail called bills they got to pay. And if the yen's not going to get it done, then yeah, they're going to seek money elsewhere. And, we're in a spot right now with Western companies where WWE and AEW, they're getting tons of money from all these TV deals. WWE just got their new SmackDown deal, even though it was less than the Fox deal. It's still a lot of money in. They're probably going to score a big deal either with Amazon Prime or some other big network for Monday Night Raw. And then Tony Khan's in a contract year. AEW is going to get renewed somewhere, whether it stays with WBD or somewhere else. They're going to get big money. And so that they have the resources. These are like billion-dollar company, billionaires that are running these companies. They have the money, the resources. And so if a wrestler's motivation is money, New Japan they can't fight that. Even if they have the best creative in the world, if the booking's the greatest, if somebody walks in there and it's like, I want this amount of money, can you match that? Like, they can't. Right.
Now, I did hear that Dave Meltzer said that basically the way that they've released Okada, it's been done very much so in like a good faith natured sort of way. Like, they don't want to bury him on the way out. They don't want him burying them on the way out. And I do kind of assume, Jeremy, that like the door is very much open down the road. Hypothetically, we could see Okada come back, and I think that right now what he's done is he has pretty much made it public, maybe not himself personally, but Ultimo Dragon and different people that are close to him, they've kind of, and Dave Meltzer, they've kind of like talked publicly and said like he's undecided where he's going. So right now, once his contract is up, they're playing it very much like a big unsigned sports star who has these agents and nobody knows where he's going to go until like the 11th hour. It drives the prices up from both companies to provide different offers. And he has all the leverage to decide when and where he might go. But when it's all said and done, who knows, 4 or 5 years from now, maybe he comes back to New Japan. Who knows what the wrestling landscape looks like at that point. So I think he's kind of done a smart thing in that respect. And I also want to say, I'm not angry with Okada for leaving. I understand that these guys are humans. They put their bodies and lives on the line every night that they go out there and wrestle. And with their earning years, there's only so many that they have. And right now he's leaving at 36, probably at the top of his prime. But obviously he's got a lot of miles and a lot of bumps on his bump card.
Yeah,
a lot of G1s under his card, a lot of dome matches.
Yeah, that man wrestled a ton of G1s. You think of the Kenny Omega series. Mm-hmm. You think of that Dragon Suplex off the top rope. You think of the Naito series, the Tanahashi series, the Ospreay series. Like this guy has delivered literally some of the best wrestling matches in wrestling history.
And look at the generation around him, Shibata. Look what happened to him. Look at where Kenny Omega's at right now physically. Look
Ibushi.
at where Kota Ibushi's at right now. Look how Tanahashi's looking.
Naito.
Look at Naito. This is one of those things that we're talking about in 2017 where we're like, damn, they're putting on some of the greatest matches of all time, but this might start to take its toll eventually if something doesn't break. And I'm not saying that he's in bad health, but he's probably looking at those guys and like, if I want to ever make and he even said in Tokyo Sports, he kind of gave some insights into what his thought processes were. And he was like, I had kind of grown stagnant in New Japan. And if I'd stayed, I just would have kind of been the same guy. And and my deal was for 5 years. If I signed, it'd be another 5 years. And if I ever wanted to make that jump to America to do something different and become something different, now was the time to do it. And that makes all the sense in the world. I'm glad that in my opinion, Okada is one of the absolute all-time greatest talents that has ever lived. And I think he should be compensated as such. So I think it's fantastic that he's getting the bag. It's just really shitty for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And it is painful for me as a fan to watch him walk out the door to an uncertain future. And I don't know what it means for the company that I love as a fan.
Right. And, it's kind of like that, the Western territory mindset where top guys knew, all right, it's time to leave the territory. Getting stale. I've made as much money as I can in this territory. Let me go to Florida. Let me go to Texas. Let me go to a different territory, a different promotion.
Let me go to Jacksonville. Let me go to New York.
Yeah, let me
Stanford.
Let me go to senior. Let me get freshened up. Make the big time money. It's like that's what guys did in that territory system, and that's what Okada's kind of done here. He's like, yeah, I need challenges. I'm stagnant. I don't want to kind of be wrestling on my lore for 5 years. So yeah, it's time for me to leave a territory. And like you, I'm not upset with Okada at leaving either. Like, yeah, definitely there's all the reasons in the world for me. If I'm Okada, I'm like, yeah, I mean, if both of these cons are going to be writing checks with a lot of zeros, I'm going to be heading over there too. The problem is, it's just the infrastructure. A lot of times when guys left the territories, there was another guy that was ready, that was going to carry that territory. Or like we just talked about with the history of Japan, there was always the next ace ready. And that's the issue here. Had Umino, Tsuji, Yamura, all those guys been pushed faster and been ready, it would have been a lot less of a blow with Okada leaving now. But the fact that none of those guys have been pushed and we're still left with stars of kind of yesteryears, guys who have kind of been here since like the Keepin the Strong Style era of 2017 that are still like those are the older guys that are on top. Like that's a little scary, especially like you just mentioned those names of guys that are kind of falling like flies or are not, and they're 100% what they were. Like, yeah, Shibata.
Had you thought of that before I said it? It almost, I was watching you and it was like a realization was hitting you like, oh, damn, these guys are done.
Yeah, like, I mean, in Shibata, I mean, he's wrestling again, but he's not even with New Japan anymore. And yeah, you have all these guys, and, you know, who knows when, like, Ishii's going to go down. I mean, he seems indestructible, but I mean,
can't be forever.
At some point,
times undefeated.
Yeah. And you know, Nagata and Suzuki are still rolling around, but I mean, a lot of these guys, and even your Gotos and Yoshihashi, like at those guys are like what, in their 40s? Like at some point in this aging like 2017 group of guys, like they're going to be wrapping it up pretty soon, or they're going to just fall apart and just not be what they like. Look at that Ibushi Marufuji match. Like, these guys are not going to be able to compete to that highest level. And I think New Japan, what COVID showed was New Japan, like, they rested too much on the guys they had, which, I mean, of course they had a plethora of top guys during that 2017-2019 time period, but from 2020 to now, we've failed to elevate more people and have people ready for when top stars leave.
It might be time to strap up Kojima.
Hey, you know, he's about to get that MLW title from Alex Kane next month.
Oh man. But no, all jokes aside though, like I was saying earlier, this kind of changes what New Japan might be. It also changes what Japanese wrestling in general looks like, because, you know, I know everyone's playing all nice and we're rah, we're doing joint shows and everything, but like New Japan might be like, yo, we need to sign Kenta Miyahara. We need to get Nomura up in here. Like, we need to figure out what's going on with Yuma Anzai. Like, fuck it. Like, let's get who's the dude that's on the run right now over in
Nakajima.
Yeah, they might need to call Nakajima. They might want to get Kato Kiyomiya. Like,
those brothers, were the Saito brothers?
The Saito brothers. Like, yeah. They might want to pull one or two of those guys, you know, and this might turn Japanese wrestling into more of a free market kind of capitalistic sort of environment, similar to the way the West is, because they're probably going to need to adjust across the board, and it's going to change the way creative is done. It's going to change the way business is done, and New Japan is going to have to change to some degree with the times. I am excited to see what creative has in store and what a post, you know, Okada New Japan looks like, but it's also uncertain and kind of scary. But I don't know if fans realize how monumentous a change a signing of this magnitude is, because a lot of people are like, well, this has happened before, we'll just rebuild. And it's like, yeah, but you keep rebuilding and the guys keep getting poached and you keep not being able to pay. It's a vicious cycle. It's going to keep going unless something changes. We're going to have to kind of become faster, more fluid, and you know, being able to adjust to these kinds of hardships. Yeah, it's like if you're building a house and somebody keeps coming and pulling the bricks that you're building with, there's only so far you're going to get with building that house. And so, yeah, you know, New Japan's whole thing about escalating the young talent, I'm like, that needs to be not just a press release. That needs to be seen in the booking and in the scouting. And I know like Oscar Lube and Yuto Nakashima, they're on a excursion. That seemed pretty quick. So it does seem like there are some signs of them trying to make things quicker. But the other end, like once these guys come back, they're not really following up on people. Well, it was very clear, too, that there was miscommunication and a disconnect between the office and the booking. And I could lay blame on both of those sides. And I think that the appointment of Hiroshi Tanahashi as president probably, hopefully, adjusts some of that and gets everybody on the same page. You know, there are other things. Oh, one thing I wanted to point out, there was a lot of outrage about Kevin Kelly's interview this past week with Jim Valley. And, you know, I'll just say this. I didn't agree with everything that he said. I did find it refreshing to hear him be 100% transparently open about his opinions as a fan. But I think that that's the whole thing. I agreed with a lot of his overarching thoughts, maybe not the specifics of his opinions of certain wrestlers, but he's a fan and he's allowed to have his fucking opinions about who he does and doesn't value and, how he thinks the guys should or shouldn't be presented.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not forget that most of us, in the West wouldn't really have the appreciation for New Japan that we have without Kevin Kelly in the first place. I saw a lot of people, wanting to hate on him. And I trust me, I get it. I didn't agree with everything he said myself, but he's allowed to have his opinion. He's a fucking fan too.
Yeah. One interesting nugget that he said that he mentioned was talking about, mentioning the 4-block G1. He said it was the other guy who made the 4-block G1. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming he was talking about Obari. So I'm wondering, all right, how much was the Office having a play? What if Gato is we're blaming Gato for a lot of stuff. And what if it was Obari and all these other Bushiroad guys that are coming in, messing with the booking. Hey, yeah, do this 4-block G1. Do, the biggest New Japan Cup, put 50 guys in the New Japan Cup.
Bro, double gold dash.
Yeah.
Unifying all that shit. Who knows? We don't know.
Right. And so, yeah, with Tanahashi, hopefully, yeah, there is not this thing of, we have to change what we're doing. We have to do a 4-block G1. There's more communication between, the Office and the booking and the management and everything.
So, another thing I will say, him versus Tanahashi, last match ever, 12 years removed from their first, meeting post, return from excursion. I'm not even that emotional of a person. I don't know if I've ever really been moved to tears by wrestling. Actually, there's one. Savage Warrior, the retirement match, and Liz and Savage, it gets me. I don't know why. It just always gets me. But I already can tell that I feel emotional about that match. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm gonna get through that one. But then we don't know what February holds for this guy. He's got 2 more dates left, and I'm wondering what they should even do. Part of me is should they just cancel the dates? Kind of remember they were supposed to do Omega and Nakamura, and then they just canceled it and sent him off on his way.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me is should they just do that? Just give him a send off after the Tanahashi match and not even do those February dates? Or would it be better for their business to do those matches? But I know some people are have him put over 2 of the young guys on the way out. And I'm I don't know. It feels at this point a little too little too late for that. I don't think it's going to have the benefiting those guys and getting them over, because everyone's going to be yeah, he was on his way out anyways. So we know what the deal is. They're not going to get over from that. I'm wondering if they should do the Ricky Choshu gauntlet. He wrestles a bunch of people, in a emotional match on his way out, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they should do for his last couple matches, what that even looks like.
Yeah, initially I'm one of those people that was night 1, eat a Death Rider from Umino. Night 2, eat a Gene Blast. Thank you for your services. Best of luck in your future endeavors. But I do see where that could seem pretty forced, and people might not see that as a real elevation for Umino and Tsuji. It could potentially hurt them. And so, yeah, it is hard. What do you do? You could do an hour-long draw with one of those guys to show, all right, this guy, they can hang with Okada for an hour. They could do maybe a Chaos Gauntlet. Yeah, he goes in there, 5 minutes each. He faces Ishii, Goto, Yano, runs through the
Chaos. I know there's a lot of people that are what's going to happen with Chaos? I'm fuck them.
Chaos is the least of my worries right now. Well, what is going to happen to Shinny Han? That's what I'm concerned about.
I got an idea. I think that they should have him wrestle Hiromu Takahashi on his way out, and Hiromu beats him clean.
Elevate Hiromu to a heavyweight?
I think Hiromu is... I'm not saying 100% that they need to elevate him to a heavyweight, but I think that New Japan should start considering the idea of blurring the lines between the differential between juniors and heavies just in general, make that less of a, an official thing, and pull the trigger on Hiromu, because when we're looking at guys that can really be true major marketable stars in the company, Hiromu is one of those top 4 guys. And this year might really need him to facilitate a heavyweight role. He's wrestled Okada before. They wrestled in the New Japan Cup, and he ended up losing via submission to Okada. I don't think he tapped out, if I recall, but I think he maybe got passed out. And maybe that might be an unexpected final match that you do, and you elevate Hiromu to be like one of the tip top guys in this company for the time being.
Yeah, and Hiromu had that great G1 in the pandemic, had that great match with Ishii. So yeah, I think Hiromu's proved that he could hang in there with the heavyweight talents, and yeah, he's a top star. And I know people kind of complain about his size, but I'm like, this guy towers Ishii in there, and yeah, he might weigh a little bit less, but I think that he could be passable as a heavyweight and would have no problem mixing it up with the guys that are there. And yeah, he's a star. He has a ton of charisma, and plus his style has changed. He's not doing a ton of crazy flips and dives and wild moves. He has kind of transitioned already to a more quote unquote heavyweight style. He's doing more lariats. He's doing more power moves. So why not? Yeah, just go all the way with him there. Another
thing I'm wondering, and I know I've seen a lot of people poo-poo on this idea, but I'm not 100% counting it out just yet. It's not a slam dunk, but I'm not so sure we don't see Okada show up in St. Pete on Saturday as an entrance into the Royal Rumble. Now, granted, this would only happen if there was 100% he's for sure signing with WWE. I know that the response to this is that, well, he's still under contract with New Japan. And my response to that would be, I think he has enough goodwill with the company that if he told them, I'm going to wrap up my dates with you guys, but I'm signing with them, they'd let him go do it. And both companies would benefit from the press and everything like that. And it'd be a huge media story. I know WWE wouldn't do it though, unless they had, pen to paper that he's going to them, because they're not going to take the risk that he turns around after making an appearance and signs
shows up at Revolution.
Yeah, that's not happening. But a lot of people don't think that could happen. But I'm like, what are the chances that you hear a coin drop, come Saturday night, and then he turns around and then goes back and finishes his dates before he goes to WWE? I think that is an actual possibility.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we got a ton of questions here. Is there any other things you want to talk about before we start running through these?
I do wonder about the landing spots of what it looks like for him to go to either AEW or WWE, but I'm sure we have questions that might touch on that.
Yeah. So let's start running through these. I think we might have answered some of this while we were talking, but we'll go through these. So first, Julia666 on Reddit. What do you think would be more blessing in disguise? It seems they are anyway building a new generation. Don't quite understand what that question is. Or maybe the thing is, this a blessing in disguise?
Okay. Well, I mean, yes, it does create an opportunity for new stars to be elevated and to be utilized, and it creates a spot at the top for somebody. So yes.
Yeah, there's holes open. There's Okada Ospreay holes open where, yeah, this leaves room for people to be elevated. So yeah, maybe it could end up being a blessing in disguise if the booking and creative and a lot of things come together. The French Ted says, what's next for Chaos, and predictions on who will be the next ace or aces in the next 12 months?
I really don't know what happens with Chaos. If it was me, I would just probably end that group because they've served their purpose. And unless you have somebody that you want to elevate by taking over the reins as being the new leader, I don't see the benefit. Personally, I think a lot of these older group, bro, at this point, I'm almost ready for them to get rid of Bullet Club and United Empire and figure something out with that. That's for another day, but I don't know. But as far as like guys that can step into that ace role, I think that that's going to be determined over the course of this year. I don't think we're going to figure it out in a month necessarily.
Yeah. As far as Chaos, I agree with you. I mean, we'd be totally fine if they just scrap. I mean, Chaos and Hantai have already kind of been blended together the last several years. So
yep.
I would just throw a line mark on those guys and roll on, unless I did see Shingo tweet about what's going on with Chaos. And so we've talked about Shingo being a faction leader. So if they do want to totally shake things up and give Shingo its own faction, you could have Shingo take over Chaos and make it something completely different. Man, I agree with you. I don't know who's going to be the ace. I mean, there's plenty of young guys. It's really just going to depend on the booking and who clicks with the audience over the next year. DJ Aftershock says, how much does looking up social media speculation of where Okada is going make you want to never visit social media ever again?
I'm not that active on social media, to be honest with you. And I don't put too much stock into a lot of the fan speculations on that stuff because there's a lot of bad faith acting on both sides. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like best case scenario, I think for us is him going to AEW, the company that has a partnership with New Japan. So at least there is some potential opportunity for him to do some New Japan shows. And I know the thing with AEW is, if he were to sign there, Tony Khan said he could still live in Japan. So that might be appealing to him. He doesn't have to move and he can work AEW. So that would be my thing. And yeah, I'm not letting the speculation bother me. People are doing their thing and it's all good.
I do want to have that discussion before we're done with all this. Maybe a question will touch on it, but I've got thoughts on that.
Okay. Reddit user Kryptonite says, are there truly any juniors left who could move up and become a possible star? Hiromu is great as the face of the junior division, but I couldn't see him ever giving the same feeling and vibe as a Tana, Naito, Okada.
I think that Desperado as well as Hiromu are extremely popular. I don't want to say that they're going to be like the top guy of the company or anything like that necessarily, but I think the potential is there. I think Fujita is a guy that's got star written all over him as well.
Yeah,
but I don't know, New Japan's kind of going to be weird moving forward. I don't know what the company is going to be like in this post Okada world.
Yeah, I think Callum Newman's another guy. He's currently slated as a junior, but you can already tell he's filling out, and I think he has potential to be somebody big.
And I'm not even getting attached to Callum Newman because, he can say what he wants about being motivated to stay here, but what if he gets signed away?
Oh, man. Next set of questions here from Dev Triangle 720. Do you think it's officially time to kill the partnership of AEW and NJPW if Okada goes to AEW?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of talk of that, huh? I think it's just one of those things where I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I do think that some of the moves that we've seen from Tony Khan over the past year as it relates to WWE kind of feels like Vince McMahon in 1984. I think that's true. But at the same time, it's also a case of circumstance where, would this be happening if Japan's economy and Bushiroad stock wasn't in the position that it was right now? I don't know Tony Khan personally. I can't sit here and tell you that he's not going to destroy New Japan, but I do think that there is an upside to the partnership and there are good faith measures that he has tried to make to maintain this partnership. And we're just at a point where Okada and Ospreay, as of now, with these circumstances, they've outgrown the company. And it was either they're going to go to WWE or they're going to go to AEW. And I mean, what are we going to do? Like fault AEW and Tony Khan for having the money and the resources and paying to, bring those guys in if that's what ends up happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
I know the optics aren't great, but it's also just a reality of business.
Right, especially for a lot of those guys, if their motivation is money, New Japan can't compete. If you're a guy like Jay White, who was tired of traveling to Japan and was tired of the whole quarantine situation, how that was handled, yeah, you're going to want to work stateside. So there's a lot of factors that a lot of these guys have jumped. It makes sense. And so I don't think it's worth blowing up the partnership over. Okada's reasoning for leaving is, I want more money and I want new competition. I want a new challenge. I want to try weekly US TV. New Japan can't do any of that. So why are we going to be mad at AEW and Tony Khan for that?
Yeah. And I mean, I get it. I think that there is sort of like so like a lot of Japanese fans, right? Japanese wrestling fans, I should say, especially in the West, they've always had this superiority kind of complex. Like, we are the best wrestling that's out there, right? And there's nothing that can kind of compete with that. But what's kind of happening right now is, because of these circumstances, Japanese wrestling is kind of somewhat, and this might change it. I'm not saying it's a death sentence, but it's kind of becoming like a feeder system to AEW and WWE. And there's a resentment, especially when you make your wrestling fandom a part of your personality, and you self-identify with the wrestling company that you watch, and then it's a threat to how you perceive yourself. You know what I mean? And so thereby you vilify, an AEW or WWE. And I mean, don't get me wrong. There's definitely things that I don't think either of those companies are perfect. And there are certain things I don't like or love about the partnership. I've voiced those on the show. But at the same time, I understand that, like, I don't think this is a situation where AEW is putting New Japan out of business. Otherwise, they'd be trying to put them out of business. I think it's a situation where, they can't afford Okada anymore.
Right. Also asked, is it time for Japanese wrestling structure to be changed?
There's a part of me that loves the way that Japanese wrestling has always worked, in honor and tradition and everything like that. But the world at large is changing. Economies are shifting, this globalism and everything like that. And yeah, there might need to be adjustments to the way that business is done in the wrestling business in Japan.
Yeah, we're kind of mentioning that earlier. Yeah, they got to change the times. We also asked, should New Japan do a legit reset from top to bottom?
No, we do not need a hard reset from top to bottom. Like, that's some Eric Bischoff and
we don't need a big
Vince Russo
big
shit.
bang, event.
No.
Yeah. Come out, everybody vacate their belts. Start over.
No, we're good. We don't need to do that.
He says, how much time does Gato have to elevate the young guys?
Well, not everything that they've done has been perfect, but not everything they've done has been awful either. They've done a lot. They've done less than what I think they should have done, but they've done more than what people are totally giving them credit for. And I think that they've got a base to build off of. We just need the right angles and stories and creative direction to get them going, to be seen as the guys that are at the top of this company right now. Not in a year, not in 2 years, not in we're going to chase and then get knocked down and then chase and knock down. No, we don't need that. Like,
yeah,
the time is now.
No tragedies. Like, we need, like, superhero, like, we're coming to save the day. We're getting it done right now. Not this, 5-year tragedy of trying so hard and all these, roadblocks, and then, oh yeah, I finally beat none of that.
We need the boyhood dream.
Yes.
We need Hogan in the garden. You know what I'm saying?
I need Shota Umino to body slam somebody.
We need the Rainmaker shock. We need our version of one of those types of things to happen. It's time.
Yeah. Let's see. Also asked, do you think at this point the Japanese wrestling scene is becoming feeder promotions for the West with no way to reach newer heights?
I wouldn't say no ways to reach other heights, because lots of things can change between now and the rest of time. But as it looks right now, it's feeling very much the way that Ring of Honor and Evolve felt in the past, where Gabe had to keep,
Reloading, yeah.
Reloading as these guys got signed away. And, look at the way that the indies are right now. The indies aren't the indies anymore. The indies are kind of dead to a certain extent. They've made a comeback in some ways, but like where are the big companies looking to get this young, fresh talent? They're looking to the dojo system. They're looking to Shinihan. And those are the types of guys that they want. They want people that are top of the line, world class, big stars, ready to go, full presentation. That's what they want.
Mm-hmm. So he also asked, do you think with the yen down, New Japan should just cut some talent who aren't beneficial to the company?
That might be a very real possibility that we see some people released that are not as necessary. And I'm not like trying to advocate for anybody, but like just giving a name out there, like some of the dads or some of the lower mid card talents that you like, I don't know, like a Yujiro. I wouldn't be surprised by things like that happening.
Right. Or maybe if not fully released, like they move from like a contract to a more like a tour
deal.
Yeah. A tour deal, per date kind of deal, or they just be freelance, because there are a bunch of guys that are freelance that we don't know about. They seem like they're contracted because they're on every show, but they could be freelance. So you think they use the money they would have paid Okada to bring in some new talent like Nakajima?
I feel like they've been spending some money on these WWE guys already, but yeah, I mean that's a very real possibility. He's a freelancer. I mean, I don't know what his contract status with All Japan right now is, but I've always kind of thought Nakajima might end up in New Japan.
Yeah, he's doing the whole Inoki gimmick right now. Like, hey, yeah. He posted a video on X, walking by, I think, the dojo or one of the New Japan shops. So yeah, that could be a possibility. His last question: do you think New Japan should learn from Stardom and speed up the Young Lion system?
I think that they already are. I mean, I can't sit here and say I know 100% because I don't watch Stardom, but I mean, they have been speeding up the Young Lion system.
Right. Oscar Loibe and Yuta Nakashima are leaving on an excursion. They haven't really been around that long. So Fujita, he got a working excursion being a part of TMDK. So there are some signs that they are trying to speed things up. But yeah, I think they're still going to take some time. They want to make sure those guys have the fundamentals. I think it's more about what happens when they come back than them speeding up the excursion part of things. Cozy Dr. Lariat says, people keep saying New Japan is dead. They said it in 2002, 2006, 2008, 2012, 2016, 2019, and now in 2024. Will people ever get sick of being wrong, especially when Japanese wrestling as a whole is on an upswing?
Japanese wrestling, I'm sorry, I definitely respect Dr. Cozy Lariat. I don't know him personally, but I think he always asks really good questions, has great points, but Japanese wrestling as a whole is not on an upswing. They might be from a fan perspective, like when it comes to creative and fan interest in certain respects, especially post-pandemic. But from a business perspective, due to the economy and due to post-pandemic and everything like that, they are not on the upswing. They are on a downtrend right now.
There's a reason why they're doing this whole United Pro Wrestling thing and all working together, is because they're trying to get business back up as a whole.
The state of Japanese wrestling is dire. These companies are really, really struggling monetarily across the board. And yeah, they're some companies like All Japan and Stardom have done some good numbers. Dragon Gate, obviously Noah was bolstered by Kijimuto, but from what they lost and the way the economy has been, they are not on an upswing. Wrestling is, at the end of the day, a business. It's the same reason why Dave Meltzer is ranting and raving online about how wrestling's in the middle of one of the biggest boom periods of all time. And it's because there's more money flowing into these two giant, these giant mega wrestling companies, AEW and WWE. It's not just because, they're not as popular as, the 1980s or the Attitude Era, but that doesn't matter. They're making so much fucking money. Like they're on the upswing. Japanese wrestling is not on the upswing right now. They're struggling.
Yeah. Discord.
But I do agree. I don't think that New Japan is on death's door right now. Of course, we don't know everything.
Right. Discord Daddy says, after seeing Okada leave Japan without putting over any younger talent, will the Bank of Japan tighten its monetary policy and raise interest rates this year?
Yeah, probably. I don't know if one's related to the other, but yeah, that's usually what happens in a recessionary period. So yeah, probably.
His other question is Hiromu moving up to heavyweight a given now? Fills one of the star gap at the top of the card and makes for some interesting matchups, including one with Naito.
Yeah, I think that they've always wanted to pull the trigger on those two guys, and they could do that big anniversary match that was supposed to happen pre-pandemic. I could even see that being like a potential dome match. You know, if you're looking right now, just today, who are the two biggest active stars in New Japan Pro Wrestling? It's Tetsuya Naito and Hiromu Takahashi, and that's probably the biggest match you have to offer, provided you're not pushing like a Tsuji to win a G1 or something like that. But putting that aside, they're the two biggest stars in the company right now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of money with inner LIJ stuff, because I think, Naito and Shingo drew really well also. I think you could do another big Naito Shingo program this year. I think there's a story obviously with Tsuji going after Naito, and then you could do something cool for Roma going after Naito. Next question here comes from the guys over at Okada Shorts, the Okada Shorts podcast, and they say, what the hell do we do with our branding?
Yeah, so we're in a somewhat similar position where Okada, the silhouette of Okada, is the logo of our podcast. Thanks, Zach Porter. I guess we didn't think that one through. But at the same time, I don't really feel like it's necessary for us to change our branding, because to me, Okada still is, he still represents the symbol of excellence and greatness through the entirety of the period of the existence of this podcast. To me, I don't see that very different from like if we had chosen Inoki to be, him with his towel or something to have been the silhouette. And at the end of the day, it's just a silhouette. Maybe one day we will change it, but right now I don't think we should. But for those guys, their name is Okada's Shorts. And he might wind up wrestling for, WWE. Maybe it'll benefit them because the title of their podcast is Okada. And if he gets really big, they might have his name. I don't know.
Right. That SEO might help out.
SEO. Yeah. I don't know, man. They might want to reconsider changing it though.
Or just become an AEW or WWE podcast.
Yeah, just follow him.
Next question here from Hawaiian Punch BV. Do you think that Puro is headed for a dark age soon? NJPW just lost their biggest star. AJPW might be embracing Simon and Inokiism. Noah has shown trouble in building their future. Or do you think that the old guard can hold strong while the future are getting ready?
It's a tumultuous time. I think that I'm optimistic that these companies can do some really cool things. I mean, we've seen All Japan and Stardom have a lot of like promise lately. So I'm kind of optimistic about that. And I'm optimistic about what New Japan can do through this new transitionary period. So I wouldn't call it a dark age just yet, but if business goes down, yeah, of course, that's always a possibility. It's going to be interesting to see how the Japanese domestic fans react to this news and how they perceive the state of affairs with the company and everything like that. And this does kind of remind me of like what was needed post Inokiism when Riki Choshu came in and took the book back and sort of righted the ship and was like that guy that guided them through. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Next question here from Rambo and Slam Pig. It says, gun to your head, snap second judgment. Where do you think Okada goes and what is he doing 1 year from today? He says AEW and an international or TNT title run. I am still bummed about this.
gun to my head, me personally, I think he goes to WWE.
Mm.
And I think he's in a very prominent 1 year from today. I think he's on the path to a very prominent position at WrestleMania.
For me, I'm gonna go with AEW. The allure of wanting to wear Nick Jackson's new getup is gonna be too much for this man to resist.
That's not really a new. Well, we haven't seen them wrestle in the new gimmick yet.
Right, I'm talking about just even the suits that they've been wearing. Okada's going.
Anybody can get a suit. That's nothing yet.
But he can't just get Nick Jackson's suit. He just can't. He's got to get the worn. He needs the scent of Nick Jackson on the clothes.
Maybe he gets signed to a EVP deal with AEW.
Yeah, he can join. We joked about in the group chat him joining the new EVP group and them replacing Omega with Okada, replacing Hangman with Ospreay, creating this new mega group. But yeah, I could see him, AEW, and then being in the top mix and being a world title contender. He also asks, says, President Tanahashi is already a big change. Do you expect further shakeups? Is it time to move on from Gato as the main booker?
We've kind of given our thoughts on that, but I think that could potentially happen. I don't know if they'll do that, but it might be needed. Maybe not. Maybe he'll surprise us.
Yeah, I definitely think there needs to be some shakeups that need to happen. We'll see if they actually do happen. And Gato, being gone could/should be one of them.
I will say this: if we get the same booking patterns that we've become accustomed to from Gato over the past decade, which were fantastic and fit, really helped this company in a lot of ways, it'll be a huge misstep, and that will be detrimental. Majorly detrimental to this company if things continue that way, because that's not what the company needs right now.
Yeah. Gato will be drafted for the 2024 FOH draft if things keep going the way they are. And Rambone's last question here says, who will benefit from the power vacuum at the top of the card with Ospreay and Okada, and to a lesser extent Tama Tonga leaving? Who is hurt the most by the lack of that star power to help get programs over?
Well, I think just all of the young talent, whether that's Gabe Kidd, Kiyomiya, the Reiwa Musketeers, Uemura, Fujita, all of those guys, Oiwa, all of those guys are seriously disserviced by not being able to work on top with those guys on the way out. So that's what I would say. But what's beautiful about this is that the power vacuum sucks everybody up. Like for instance, just to kind of give you a for instance, prior to the exodus of all those guys in 2016 to WWE, Tama Tonga was like the pin eater in Bullet Club. Not the bottom pin eater, but like in the 6-man trios, he was kind of like the pin eater guy. And then they all left, and he sort of got elevated and started winning tag team gold with his brother. And then, slowly worked his way up to being like a upper mid card, and then, kind of an upper guy, sometimes main event. And it was through the course of the power vacuum that was created that afforded him those opportunities to rise up. I'm not going to sit here and say that tomorrow, through all this, Hanare or Great O'Khan are going to be top guys, but everybody slots up, and the right guys at the right time, whether that's a Jeff Cobb or the guys I just named, a Taichi, they're going to be benefited by being able to move up the card and move into new stories, new opportunities, new title runs, and everything like that. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on the guys that are at the top right now, like Tanahashi, like Zack Sabre, like Finley, and like, Naito.
Yeah, I think this definitely benefits Zack Sabre a lot. He's the guy that, he hasn't won the world title yet. He's had several challenges. He's won New Japan Cups, and I think he's a guy that they really need to heat up and benefit on with him loving Japan, living in Japan, and really wanting to hit those goals of winning the G1s and being IWGP champion. I think he's a guy that you definitely count on for main events and push going forward. And I think a lot of the young guys, a lot of those, the Reiwa Musketeers, the LA Dojo guys, I think that they are all super talented, and this now, gives them the platform and the opportunity to kind of rise to the occasion. Next question here from Rich Latta from the show says, should the Yakuza be allowed back to save Japanese wrestling?
Fucking idiot. I do want to say shout out to Rich and James. They did emergency audio for One Nation Radio the night of the news that dropped about Okada's departure, and I listened to that earlier today. I thought they did a fantastic job kind of giving their initial thoughts and feelings. And one thing that they really brought home in a certain sense that we haven't discussed too much on the show, they talked a lot about the legacy of the quality of matches and the storylines and the emotion and the boost that Okada's run on the top kind of gave to New Japan, and what it did for, him with his runs with Tanahashi and his runs with Naito and his runs with Kenny Omega and, you name it. There's all that stuff. I thought they did a fantastic job. And if you haven't listened to it, I think it's well worth your time to check out. It's a short listen too.
Yeah, you can check it out here on the Social Suplex feed to get all the great shows in one place. Also go over to our YouTube channel to see the video version of that breaking news audio they did. But yeah, I mean, Okada was definitely a big shot into the arm of the promotion, and it's kind of hard to imagine like what would have happened if the Rainmaker shock didn't happen, and they would have slow rolled him the same way that they're doing to Tsuji Umino and the rest of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, this is the closing of a period of time that, in my opinion, is the greatest in-ring period of any wrestling company ever in the history of professional wrestling. And hopefully this next new period is just as good and exciting. And it is a new, rebuilding phase, but fuck, with him leaving, that's it. It's over. Like, that's it. That's the close of that
series finale.
Yeah.
Next question here from Grunty Dodd says, what do you guys want to talk about? Is it possible that JY was playing the long game and Okada was the mole in chaos this whole time? Leaving now has done more to hurt the faction and the company than anything Bull Club's ever done. Sorry, I'm taking a break from New Japan. I had to ask one last Chaos Mole question before going. Thanks for years of podcasting. It's been fun.
Don't leave Grunty Dodd. Shit's about to get real. I think that they're going to do some cool shit. So yeah, don't.
Hey,
we need those downloads.
Hey, you can take a break. Yes, leave it subscribed. The auto download, whatever app you use. Just make sure the weekly download comes in, brother, and enjoy your break.
But I kind of think we get paid off people actually listening, so the ads get populated on their feed. I don't know.
I don't know, but overall, we still need the download, so keep subscribed. Less Commission 7252 has some questions here. It says, do you think New Japan will make a move where they will elevate their young stars in Yumura, Tsuji Umino, and Narita into stardom and make 2024 about them to get rid of the concern of lack main eventer stars from the roster, or continue to slowly build them up, which might take 1 to 2 years?
I think they need to adjust to something of that nature, yes. And I think that they need to start thinking about putting their best foot forward with this new crop of talent across the board with the entirety of the roster. And yeah, stop focusing so much on like House of Torture shenanigans and getting heat and slow build. Yeah, that shit needs to go.
So do you guys think Shinsuke should have left New Japan by losing the IC title to either Tanahashi or Omega instead of a tag match? I'm not saying there wasn't anything wrong with the way Nakamura left, but with Okada's last match being a singles match against number one rival, was the tag match the correct way for Nakamura to leave New Japan?
I've always wondered about, if you don't recall, he was supposed to wrestle Kenny Omega for the title at New Beginning. And then for whatever reason, they canceled that and they made Tanahashi versus Omega for the vacant IC title instead. And I don't know what 100% went into that decision, but they gave him the big send off, and then we kind of just moved on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, I mean, I think it was fine for what it was. I mean, him versus Kenny would have been great, but at the end of the day, I think it worked out fine. And with Okada, the Tanahashi match is not going to be his last match. He's going to have those 2 dates in Sapporo, and so they could be singles, or we said it could be a gauntlet. It could be some kind of tag, one last hurrah, him and Chaos for somebody, or who knows? Maybe Team Hall of Fame retains the title.
Something crazy might happen. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah. His last question: with Okada, Ospreay, and Tama leaving New Japan, is this quite the same situation from 2016 where AJ, the Good Brothers, and Nakamura left? It hurts losing multiple stars, but New Japan had quickly recovered by that upcoming summer.
I hope they do recover, but I don't think it's the same situation. There are parallels, but it's not, and we already covered that.
Yeah. Dr. Lariat says Gato was said to not really push the Arewa boys as a FU to management, who wanted the Young Lions brought up faster because they saw how fast Stardom created talent. Does it seem like time for Gato to step down as a booker and for somebody new to step up? As far as upcoming retired juniors, it seems Kaz Hayashi is retiring.
I couldn't tell you who needs to be booking. But yeah, I do think that there needs to be, we've already said it, there needs to be a change of methodology and thinking and ideas here.
Yeah. Neveth from Discord says, what juniors would you promote to heavyweight to bolster the main event roster? Also, what outside talent would you like NJPW to bring in more often to bolster the roster?
We've already kind of talked about that. The one thing I do want to point out, though, with the AEW relationship, one big benefit that New Japan receives from that, in addition to the talent exchanges, in addition to, the Forbidden Door show, that is probably at this point going to be one of the most important shows New Japan has, if for nothing else, just the money that gets to convert from dollars to yen. They wouldn't be able to do what they're doing right now in the States without Tony Khan allowing his talent to come on and work their shows. And they seem to be kind of adjusting their strategy for New Japan of America. And it's a huge benefit to New Japan to be able to utilize guys like Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston and other stars from that company to be able to boost ticket sales in America, to thereby then benefit the company by having that conversion rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely a big thing people forget about, and how fast these tickets have sold out for Chicago, and the interest in Moxley and Naito, and the fact that, we can see Moxley in the U.S. and Japan. Moxley's done a lot of stuff in Japan last year and is probably going to do more this year. He's very motivated. He's really wants 2024 to be a really big year for him. So,
one other thing too, Jeremy, and I haven't mentioned this, but I think it's one other talking point that we kind of need to consider. TNA, I was going to say / Impact, but TNA has money. They're looking to invest in people. They keep losing the bidding wars between, AEW and WWE, and they're looking for, a big names to sign away. New Japan has a bunch of unsigned killers who are white waiting in the wings, meaning the Bullet Club War Dogs. I'm not so unsure that, to a smaller extent, what we're seeing happen with them in AEW and then with WWE doesn't start to happen with ELPs, Hikuleos, who's not white, by the way, but, Gabe Kids, Coglins. Though I feel like those are the type of guys who are at the stature where if they don't get what they want from New Japan, they could easily get signed away to Impact, and then they would be the talent that's allowed to come over and work cross-promotionally from time to time, similar to like Nick Nemeth and Kushida. But I've heard a lot of people talk about that, but I think it's very, very realistic to be happening in the very near future because they got money and they want to spend it for whatever reason.
Yeah, I know they'd probably drop a lot of that on Nick Nemeth, and we'll see if they bring anybody else. But they've been trying to bid, but they don't have the big bucks to compete with Tony Khan and WWE.
Well, if I was them, I would look at the dojo system and what New Japan produces, and I'd look at a guy like, specifically, I'd look at Gabe Kidd and I'd be like, they're not even going to pay him what he's worth. I could probably scoop him up for a song and fucking make him a major star for my company.
Yeah. I will say, Kevin Knight, he did work the last set of Impact tapings.
Bro, we don't even know what the fuck's going on with Kevin Knight, you know?
Man's teaming with Alex Shelley and Kushida and Impact. That's what's happening.
That's another guy that So
next set of questions here from Lee Chang is Bay 2. Says, real talk, Okada leaving New Japan is devastating for the promotion and for Puroresu in general. I think Young Boy said a few weeks ago that an ace leaving his home promotion in its prime has never been done before, so this is an unprecedented move on Okada's part. So let's play a game. Hiroshi Tanahashi puts you guys in charge of New Japan. You lost 4 of your core 6 main eventers, Ibushi, Ospreay, Jay, and Okada, and the other 2 are either past their prime, Tanahashi, or on his last leg, Naito. What do you do now? Who becomes your new immediate core 6 main eventers? Who do you elevate? Who becomes your new ace? Do you sign more free agents like freelance star Nakajima? Do you try poaching stars like Kaito Kiyomiya from their promotion? And what can you do now to convince people that everything will be okay and stick with the product for the long run?
great question. Very, very interesting. A little bit too much for me to go in depth about, but yeah, I think that they need to do all that. I think that they need to sign some freelancers that are domestic stars like Nakajima. They need to really consider bringing in Kiyomiya. They need to elevate some of those junior stars. And even if they're not full-time heavyweight, they need to basically present the perception that they are, just like in every other company in the world, capable of competing on the top level with the heavyweights. That means that, I think that we should see Hiromu or Desperado in a top spot. And I think that they need to elevate their young talents as fast as they possibly can while still telling a good story, and that means they need to pull the trigger on Suji and Umura. Or I'm sorry, Suji and Umino. And everyone else. Umura too.
I think from established talent, the 2 guys that I definitely hit the button on are Shingo and Zack Sabre. Yep, we saw their rivalry in 2021. Those are 2 guys I'm elevating big time. They're going to be a part of that core 6. They're going to be main eventing big shows and doing something cool with those guys. But yeah, I agree with everything else that you said. We also asked, where do you think Okada goes now? My gut telling that he's WWE bound. Meltzer says he wants to wrestle at WrestleMania. But could it be that Tony Khan letting Okada go over Danielson and Ospreay was some sort of Machiavellian move from the AEW owner because he already knows he has Okada in the bag?
I think probably now is maybe time for me to sort of say what I think about what's going to happen with Okada moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
We've always said on this show that Kazuchika Okada is basically Hulk Hogan in terms of the way he's presented from an imagery standpoint for this company. The way Hulk Hogan was pretty much just the main focal point and the main eventer and the world champion. Even when he wasn't the world champion, he was the ace of WWE from 1984 up to 1994. That's basically what Okada has been in this company. The idea that he's even holding the 6-man titles has been kind of crazy because he's never held any title other than the world title. And now he's going to be signing with an outside Western company. And no matter how you crack it up, one way or the other, he's not going to be presented as the tip-top ace of the company, whether it's AEW or WWE. And that is going to be new, uncharted territory and kind of bewildering to think about. My opinion is, and congratulations to him on whichever one he signs with. I think that there are pros and cons to both. And full disclosure, I am much more a fan of AEW. This is not a bad faith, like, oh, I'm really an AEW guy. Like, no, I like AEW. I don't fucking watch WWE except for like pay-per-views. I'm much more of a AEW fan, but I think there's pros and cons to both. I think he goes to WWE. I think it's realistic he goes to either one, but I think that it boils down to this for me. He's going to get fucked. Whether he goes to AEW or WWE, he's going to get fucked, period. And the reason why is because neither company knows what to do with a major Japanese talent. Look at their track record. Look at their histories. They don't know what to do with an Okada. Okada going to take the money from WWE or AEW is Bret Hart leaving WWF to jump to WCW in 1997. They didn't know what to do with him. And neither company, from a creative standpoint, is going to get Okada. If he goes to AEW, he will have better matches. And in the long run, he might have stronger creative. but he will never be the top star outside of maybe them like putting the title on him. Even that, they don't know how to use Japanese talent that can't speak English, can't promo, and that is a promo company. And they don't know how to use Spanish-speaking talent at the top level. And Okada is a top-level guy. I think that if he goes to WWE, because of how much pageantry is involved with that company and how they can get the promotional and make someone seem larger than life, that he will get fucked there. But they can give him the Cody Rhodes presentation for a year at least. The same way that they were able to kind of make Walter seem larger than life and put him on a dominant run. The same way they made Cody seem like a big, big, big deal. And the same way that they've done a good job with Nakamura recently. I think that with the money that they would have to pay him to bring him in, and the fact that he already has this gimmick, the Rainmaker, and he's got the look and everything like that, he kind of fits as a WWE guy to where they can make him a big deal, a big star out the gate if they want to, and then just present him that way. And eventually, pull the rug from underneath him, just like they did Cody, just like they did Nakamura, just like they've done to all those guys. But because he's never going to be Roman. He's not going to be the ace of the company, but they can at least make some money with him out the gate. In AEW, they will not know what to do with him, and they're going to have him in, they're going to do similar things to like what they've done with Jay White, or, you look at the presentation, the way that they've used like Bryan Danielson and stuff like that. Like, they're not going to fully get Okada. They're not going to know how to translate him to their audience. And I think they will try, but they have clearly shown that they don't know how to make guys feel special in that big way, the same way WWE does. The only two guys that they've ever in their history made feel really, really big and really special on that level, like the monster promotional smack you in the face, this guy's special, is Sting and CM Punk. No one else in the company has ever felt like those two guys. Even Kenny Omega at the top, when he was, getting his big announcements and the sweepers and the girls, even that didn't feel like Punk and Sting. And I don't think that they're going to. Now, the one thing I will say, both companies want to win the bidding war because they don't want to have the perception of losing. And for the amount of money they're going to have to pay him to get him, they're going to have to use him in a major way. And that bodes well. But I don't think either company's going to get him. And in the long run, I don't think we're going to see a top of the card main eventer, the tip top guy, Okada, that we're used to seeing. And it's going to be a little bit heartbreaking for those fans that love Okada and know what he's capable of. I think he'll have better presentation in the short term for WWE. And I think he will probably be able to main event a WrestleMania. And that's probably what they're going to pitch him with. They're going to say, look at what we did for Cody. We'll give you a Nakamura version of Cody. You'll win a Royal Rumble. You'll main event. He might even get one of those 2 world titles, maybe the fake one. He might not be Roman, but he might get the fake world title.
We'll have you go over Seth.
You'll go over Seth Rollins and all that. But in AEW, they're going to be like, you don't have to live here. They're going to give him other perks and he's going to be able to do whatever he wants, but they're not going to know what to do with him. And then he's just kind of going to fade a little bit and be less of what he's been in New Japan. He's not ever going to be the ace of AEW. That's not happening.
Yeah. And I think AEW, they have shown that they have Konosuke Takeshita. They've really failed to capitalize on. Like, he was having a hot run as a babyface. Like, people want him to win so bad, and then they did the heel turn. And even with the heel turn, like, sure, he's beaten Kenny twice, but they haven't really followed up with that. He's just kind of in the Don Callis family, just kind of floating around. Some weeks you're like, where is he? And then they use him. He has great matches like he did with Darby. It's like, all right, this guy should be wrestling every week, and he's not. And so, yeah, I feel like AEW has had a chance to kind of prove now that historically, yes, they have used Japanese talent, I would say overall better than WWE. Like, they give guys great matches, better.
Well, in some ways, but in some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. And it speaks to what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. They have better matches. They get opportunities to be on TV and having great matches, and pay-per-views having great matches, but they don't get presented like stars. At least in WWE, you got a Io Sky, you got a Asuka, you got a Nakamura to point to as. But then again, those are all gimmicked up people that got to have paint on their face. They got to shoot
spit
mist.
Yeah.
That's the WWE thing. But and then there's a lot of other failures. You could put a ton of failures. Like where they really didn't get them, like whether it's Tozawa or Kenta or
Kensuke Suzuki.
Yeah, Kensuke Suzuki. There's a whole treasure trove of guys they didn't get that they failed with that.
Yokozuna.
Yokozuna is actually, I thought about this today. Yokozuna was portrayed as Japanese. Obviously, it was, Rodney Inouye, and he could speak, he was Samoan. He's a Samoan, and he could speak English. But the way they presented him was as a Japanese, and that's probably the most positive they've ever presented a quote-unquote Japanese talent in the history of their company, because he was the dominant world champion and a monster. And they gave him a mouthpiece, and he killed everybody. But I don't think they're going to do that with Okada. But because he has the Rainmaker aura, because he's 6'2" and he's got superstar looks and he's handsome and he's, all of that, and he can wrestle. And he could definitely wrestle the WWE house style. It's going to be much easier. Mm-hmm. He's going to have the flowing, they're going to have Okada bucks flying in the, and all that shit. They're going to eat him up, and they're going to present him very well, at least for a short period of time. They'll just run out of ideas, and they won't know what to do after the initial, everything wears off. But in AEW, he's going to have great matches, but they won't be able to present him on that level. They won't know what to do because he won't be able to promo. And I mean, you look at Ibushi, obviously Ibushi isn't Ibushi anymore, but Ibushi, they were never going to get. They've failed with Takeshita. They failed with Hikaru Shida. They've tried, and they just don't have the creative to understand how to utilize Japanese talent that way. And the most successful Japanese talent they've ever had is Riho, and I don't even think they know why Riho connects with the fans.
For some reason it just works. Let's just put her out there.
Throw her out there. We get ratings. They love her. We don't know why, but she is over. And then you look at the Mexicans, that are Spanish speaking, and they're pretty much, the Lucha Bros are pretty much over just based on the gimmick and how dynamic they are, but they have a ceiling because they can't really put them in programs because they don't know what the fuck to do with them.
Right.
They're not going to know what to do with Okada, bro. I'm telling you right now.
The fact that Pentagon and Phoenix aren't superstar main eventers for them is kind of weird.
It's not, because most companies don't know what to do with foreigners who can't speak the language. That's just how it is, and Westerners don't have that thing that Japanese fans have where we just appreciate, in Japan, a Westerner can get over by just saying a couple key phrases that they know, and then working hard, and they just clap and they appreciate it. But in America, it doesn't work that way. I don't think they're going to get Okada. I think that, I'm not saying the runs are going to be failures. He's too good for that, but he's not going to be Okada anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part. He's just not going to be Okada that we have come to know. But
especially if he goes to WWE, he really might not be Okada.
I think he'll be presented as a bigger star than he ever has in Japan from an optic standpoint, even if he's not slotted like that. But then they'll turn him into a good hand at best case scenario. In AEW, they'll try, but I don't think they've got the money and the creative and that whole juggernaut to put him in that echelon. And he'll end up he'll be on pay-per-views. He'll be working Hangman. He'll be working Danielson, stuff like that. Yeah, Swerve. And it'll be really awesome. And people will like him, but he just won't be the top guy. Mm-hmm. And it will be like Bret Hart in WCW, where you're he's kind of spinning his wheels. What the fuck's he doing? That's what's going to happen. This is not hater shit. This is based off the track record of both these companies. And I'm very excited about a lot of the key changes that are going on in AEW. They're getting it right now, and it's exciting. But I don't think they're going to get Okada, man.
Well, if he's going to be Bret Hart, just keep him away from Bill Goldberg, please. Next question. Though he'll never admit it, do you think there could be some resentment for Okada from the new president of New Japan? Hiroshi Tanahashi did spend the final years of his prime to elevate Okada to the ace role, but now Okada is leaving New Japan without doing the same favor for any of the new guys, and now the New Japan is in a worse spot because of it. If Okada was leaving no matter what, couldn't Okada just stay for another year and elevate somebody to that ace role before leaving next year? Or was it a classic case of that doesn't work for me, brother, from Okada's end?
That's just pure speculation. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I have no reason to think that that's exactly what it is. When I look at the landscape, his contract's up. He'd have to resign. I don't think he wants to resign. I think he wants to. He's 30. He's 36.
Yeah, I think we've kind of explained it. Like, what he's doing right now is going to elevate he's going to get the bag. Like, he's putting two of the biggest companies against each other to outbid each other. And that doesn't happen if he resigns, or even if he freelances too long, his value could potentially go down. Because then they still either see him as the New Japan guy or just like this freelance guy. And him leaving right now at his peak, like, this is what's going to help the bidding war.
The one benefit, if he does sign with AEW, and I'm not saying now, one thing I will say, WWE might throw in a little sweetener and say, because it's not the same company as before. They might literally be like, we'll let you work a dome show on January 4th once a year.
Yeah, they'll let Carl Anderson work the dome.
They let Carl Anderson do it. They let Nakamura go work that match with Keiji Muto, that big deal. They've done some kind of weird stuff like that, and they might just be like, you know what? It's January 4th. We're not doing pay-per-view on that night. Go work the Tokyo Dome. How's that not going to benefit them to have their, big Japanese star go work for that? The other thing too, we can't discount the idea that them wanting to sign him couldn't in some way benefit the idea of
NXT Japan.
That's a classic WWE playbook. You sign the top star from a territory, and then you go back to that territory and you run it with him on top. That's what they did with Junkyard Dog, and that's what they did with all these guys. So that's also possible. But I wouldn't be surprised if they let him work a dome show. But conversely, if he goes to AEW, hypothetically, he might be able to come back and work with some of these young talents. Forbidden Door, that stuff is still on the table, and it's much more so on the table with AEW than it is WWE.
Yeah, bro, can you imagine that? They're like, yeah, we'll sign you. Oh, yeah, you can stay in Japan. Yeah, you can still live in Japan. Yeah, we got a nice little project we need you to, kickstart for us.
Oh, I could see WWE doing something like that for sure.
Yeah, that would suck.
The one bad thing, though, is if he does go to AEW, the chances of him putting over let's just say Umino, they're very low, because AEW guys generally, the big stars generally don't lose to guys that are not perceived as big as stars in New Japan.
Yeah. Then it says, let's see, where's the next question here? Tanahashi was able to steer New Japan through the dark ages and into the light when the company was at its lowest. If he's able to do it again at this time as president of New Japan and make the company as strong or stronger than it was before, will that make him the undisputed GOAT in New Japan's history?
Very well, possibly. I mean, Inoki casts a long shadow, but possibly.
Yeah, it's possible. His last question, I think we're all forgetting the most important question of all, one that will not just change the course of New Japan, but, the entire world. No cap. That question is, who becomes the new logo for the KISS podcast? Now, I know there's a lot to choose from, like Tanahashi's ace pose, Naito's eye taunt, Nagawa salute, and that may suggest the evil staring off into the distance after hitting a home run taunt. Time to embrace the darkness, brother. Evil and how the torture will save New Japan.
Next question.
Last set of questions here from Dom Hobie 101. With the departure of Okada, did you guys think we would ever be here?
No.
Yeah, very surprising. What does an Okada-less New Japan look like?
A little bit sadder, a little bit dimmer.
Less rain being made.
Less perfect drop kicks,
Mm-hmm. What do you guys think went wrong with this whole situation with Okada and New Japan? And will we see any other departures from the company? Is Gato on the clock?
I think we've covered that, but that's a great question.
Yeah. How will the departure of Okada affect NJPW in the short term and long term?
It's going to put pressure on them to put their best foot forward in the short term to prove that the company is on good footing, even with his absence. I think I think this New Japan Cup is going to become the most important New Japan Cup in the history of the company. Long term, they got to get a new ace.
Yeah, I think in the G1 too, I think it's going to be very important this year as well.
A G1 without Okada is crazy.
And Ospreay.
Yeah, but especially Okada. Okada's won it so many times. He's always in the finals. Like, it's crazy.
Well, I guess that will alleviate one complaint of people being tired of him
Fuck those people.
winning or being the finals. With the departure of Okada, would it be beneficial for Naito to have a long title reign or a short title reign?
At first I was gonna say short, that he needed to have a short reign, because I don't see the benefit in having Naito at top. But with this power vacuum that's been created, you might need to have Naito at top, and this works out for the LIJ stands that always wanted him to have that. But you know what? At the same time, they're probably going to look at this and be like, another asterisk sitting next to Naito's title run. But yeah, I think that we might need him to have a bit of a longer run. I'm not saying it needs to go all year, but
maybe to Dominion.
Maybe, possibly, yeah. It depends. I mean, at the same time, we've talked about his health. Maybe a guy like a Shingo or a
Saber,
Zack,
yeah,
or even a Hiromu needs to win the title soon, so we have a healthy leader.
Speaking, people were asking about potential people to bring in, two names that could potentially be hitting free agency soon. Drew McIntyre and Finn Balor. I would take those two guys.
Those are both very incredible prospects. And you know what? I'm not saying that they would sign with New Japan. We've talked about their financial issues, but both of those guys might be looking at AEW and looking at like what's about to happen with how many stars are coming in, and be like, it's pretty fucking crowded over there. They might think of the Nick Nemeth way. It's like, go back to Japan, have a run, go to TNA, do some indies, maybe make some AEW appearances, don't sign anything, then go back to WWE, as a made man again. I mean, Drew McIntyre's already done that before,
Yeah,
it's possible.
Yeah, the one thing he hasn't done is Japan, so I think that could be alluring for him. And then with Finn Balor, seeing kind of what AEW is like, and there might not be room for him on that, especially he's older too. I think
never won the IWGP.
Yeah, I think New Japan would take him back in a second, and then there's all kind of the Bullet Club lore stuff you could do there as well.
Oh my God, the Bullet Club lore people would have a fucking field day.
With the departure of Okada, will the New Japan Cup be a launching point to the next era, or will they wait until the G1 to launch the next era?
Everything that happens post Okada leaving is aiming right now. Everything we're doing is aiming to the next era. But yeah, those are two very important tournaments this year.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah. With the departure of Okada, how does Bryan Danielson play into things with NJPW?
I don't know, but I hope we'll see what happens after the Zack match. I don't know if he'll be coming back regularly after the Zack match. I hope he does.
Yeah, same. And his last question, any thoughts on what the final Okada and NJPW match will be? Could it be a gauntlet match involving Yuya and the Three Musketeers?
That would be cool. That might be a cool way to go. Yeah. I could see them doing I'll just do a prediction. Maybe like a gauntlet like that, and then maybe the night before like a
Chaos Gauntlet,
a Chaos send off, like an all Chaos multi-man tag match or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably the best options.
Jeremy, we covered a lot here. We're gonna jump into the rest of the show, but do you have any last closing final thoughts as we move on from this topic? It's
been overall happy for Okada. I'm glad that he's going to be able to, continue his career the way he wants to, make the money he deserves, and be able to support his wife and his new child. And overall, I'm cautiously optimistic for things in New Japan. They have the talent, and now it's up to them to get that talent over. And Okada, he's gonna leave a very lasting legacy, and because of Okada, is a reason why podcasts like this exist, because of the Rainmaker shock and that rivalry with Tanahashi that really launched New Japan back into the forefront of Western fans. Wrestle Kingdom 9 and all that being promoted through pay-per-view, and just how that kicked off, and New Japan World, and double Tokyo Domes, New Japan and Madison Square Garden. There's so many things that happened because of the Rainmaker shock, and because Kazuchika Okada was the top guy, and also the top guy throughout the whole history of this podcast. So yeah, it's going to be it's very weird. It's going to be a very weird season for of a life, so to speak, for New Japan. But I do think there is potential for sunnier days. Tanahashi said, when the rain stops, the rainbow will come, something like that. So hopefully, the rainbow is coming, and down from the rainbow slides superstars in Umino, Tsuji, Narita, Gabe Kidd, and the rest of the young guys.
I'm not a writer, so I can't do the whole eulogy thing that Rich Latta does on One Nation Radio, but I just feel a lot of gratitude for the time that we had with Okada here in this company, because the matches he had, man, and I'm not even the biggest Okada guy. He's not my ideal favorite wrestler necessarily, although I recognize how I am a fan. But bro, when I think back to the Nakamura matches and the Ibushi matches, and him and Kenny, and him and Tanahashi, which in my opinion is the defining series of the era, and him and Naito, and that never-ending title run where he set the record for the IWGP title, and the matches with him and Jay White, being able to be at Madison Square Garden to see him win the IWGP title, and just all the stories. People say this company doesn't have stories, but my favorite wrestling stories come from that era of professional wrestling. Come from Kazuchika Okada being the main character energy, the focal point of this entire era of Japanese professional wrestling. And the reality is, I might have fallen out of watching wrestling if it wasn't for Kazuchika Okada. We wouldn't be doing this show if it wasn't for Kazuchika Okada. This is the guy that carried the company on his back for since 2012, 12 years now. And it is sad. I'm a little bit kind of still mourning it. I don't know what that first show post February is going to look like without him. It's going to be sad. And I'm kind of a little, I don't know if you can hear, I'm a little bit emotional. And it's funny because it's just pro wrestling. It's fake fighting. It's scripted, but and I don't know, but it's the end of an era. And, these guys are incredible. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we're about 2.5 hours in. I think we should kind of speed run through the remainder of this stuff here.
We can speed run it because New Beginning in Nagoya on January 20th in Aichi Prefectural Gymnasium has to be one of the fucking worst major shows in the history of New Japan Pro Wrestling. I have quick thoughts on almost everything, but I don't want to review any of it.
Yeah, it's how do we follow up Wrestle Kingdom and Battle in the Valley? This show.
Bro, this wasn't even, they shouldn't have called this an official.
This was a road to.
This was worse than most road twos. This fucking sucked. First match, Murashima versus Kato. They wrestled to a 10-minute draw. I will say this: we're gonna have to give them some time, because this is the greenest I've ever seen two young lions in a very, very fucking long time. I mean, no hate, but fuck. It was rough.
I liked Murashima. He was doing Kimura a lot. His Kimura looked pretty good in the way he was getting into it.
The best thing about this show was I liked that they have the lion mark logo in the middle of the ring, which they don't normally do. That's the best thing I have to say about this show. But House of Torture, Ren Narita and Yujiro Takahashi, they defeated Umino and Hanma, continuing the Narita Umino storyline. Third match of the night, Bull Club War Dogs, Coughlin, Connors, Finley, Maloney, and Gabe Kidd. They defeated the United Empire team of Callum Newman, Francesco Akira, Hanare, Jeff Cobb, and TJP. Probably the best match of the night. Continues the feud between those two guys.
Yeah.
Two teams.
And the whole another interesting piece here in the backstage promos that keep harping, like Akira does not want any part of the 5-on-5 cage. He's only concerned about defending the junior tag titles this coming up week against the War Dogs, but he is so against like this whole faction warfare and the 5-on-5 cage, and all the other UE guys are kind of like, what's your deal? So I'm wondering, like, is Akira gonna turn, or is it gonna be one of those situations where he is the guy that kind of makes the save? Like they're down 4-5 and he comes back in and makes a save kind of thing.
They do have him slotted all throughout the Fantastica Mania tour as a Rudo, wrestling with the Rudos after that steel cage match. So it is wondering if that is like foretelling of what might happen. I don't know. Fourth match of the night, House of Torture show and Kanemaru. They defeated Desperado and Master Wato. Kanemaru will be, challenging for the junior title against Desperado tomorrow. TMDK, Kosei Fujita, Mikey Nickel, Shane Hayes, and Zack Sabre Jr. They defeated the Chaos team of Okada and Ishii, along with Tanahashi and Togi Makabe. This was the send-off match for Okada and what I believe is his home Perfectural. And post-match, he did the big bow to the crowd and, giving the win to TMDK to kind of heat them up in preparation for their title challenge for the six-mans.
Mm-hmm.
Sixth match of the night, Doki, Sonata, Taichi, Taka Michinoku, and Yuya Uemura defeated the LIJ team of Bushi, Hiromu, Shingo, Naito, and Yota Tsuji, 9 minutes and 1 second. We're on the road to Sonata, Naito 2. And then the seventh match of the night, we had the KOPW title 10-minute Ishimori ring fit match between Great Okan and Taiji Ishimori. And, there were some funny moments, but the gimmick of the match was essentially they would wrestle for 3 minutes. At the end of the 3 minutes, they would do a 30-second interval of high-intensity interval training, and then the match would continue. And the rules had stated that whoever had the most pinfalls, submissions, or was holding the title at the end of the 10-minute time limit would be declared the champion. And so they go through all this shit. It's all funny gaga gimmicks and, basically Great Okan not being able to keep up athletically and physically through the hit challenges and looking like he was almost going to throw up and pass out by the end. But at the very end, as time is expiring, nobody has pinned anybody. Nobody has submitted anybody. Great Okan falls on the ground, and somehow the title had been incorporated into the match as like a foreign object, and he grabs it, falls on it and grabs it. And the referee declares him the winner because he's literally fucking holding the title. We thought that when they said the holder of the title, we thought they meant like
a pinfall. Like,
yeah, you obtain the title by winning it via pinfall, and you're the last person holding the title, like figuratively, but they meant literally.
Bro, I was blown because like I was spoiled going into this show. I was too. I watched the show this afternoon and like, oh, I know Okan's gonna win, so I'm watching the match. I did think like some of the stuff Okan was doing was funny. Like it was funny. His facial expressions were pretty funny, like getting blown up and stuff. And I'm like, all right, he's gonna claw slam this dude at some like there's like 10 seconds left. He didn't pin him. I was like, are they gonna restart the match? Like what's happening? And then he falls and grabs a belt and he wins. I was like,
yeah,
what?
I didn't understand it either. And then I was like, oh, are they fucking for real right now? That was bad, real bad.
Yeah, that was terrible. Like some Vince Russo. Yeah.
Semi-main event, the New Japan Strong Openweight Tag Team titles were on the line as God, El Phantasmo, and Hikuleo successfully defended against the Bull Club team of Chase Owens and Kenta, 21 minutes and 33 seconds. I thought this match sucked.
And why now do Kenta and Chase still get a title shot later on the tour? Like they just lost to the champions here, and so they should not challenge for the heavyweight tag titles at this point now.
Yeah, I don't think they should be worthy challengers because they've already lost. And then after 21 minutes and 33 seconds of this match. I don't need to see it again. The best thing about this match, I like
Kenta's haircut.
Yeah, Kenta's new haircut. It looked good. Other than that, this was not a good way to get things off on the right foot when it comes to, the tag title scene in New Japan. In 2024. I don't fucking get it. And then the main event was Evil versus Tama Tonga, 18 minutes and 1 second. Evil defeated Tama Tonga, so they start the match off almost immediately, House of Torture shenanigans. Then a bunch of, Hantai jumps in the ring. Red Shoes throws the match out. Looks like Tama Tonga retains via DQ or no contest. And then they cut a promo and basically say, we need to continue the match, but you got your boys, I got my boys. Let's do a lumberjack match. And they proceeded to have, I would say it was the worst, but there have been a lot of really fucking bad lumberjack matches in New Japan history. Most of them have been pretty fucking terrible. This one was also pretty terrible, and it's such a dichotomy from the highs of Tama Tonga's match at the Tokyo Dome with Shingo, contrasted with this match with Evil. Evil wins. He's the new champion, and Tama Tonga cuts a heartfelt promo at the end, but God, we did not need 18 minutes of this match. Like, this is a bad show. It's a bad show.
Yeah, we had 2 questions here from Dom Hui 101. He said, let's talk about the hottest free agent in the wrestling world. What company do you think Tama Tonga will land in?
I'm not sure, with the fact that these other 2 guys have just departed. I don't kind of steals a lot of the steam out of the Tama Tonga departure.
Bro, I could see him landing in TNA.
Bro, I was going to say the same thing. I could see him landing in TNA too.
We also asked, with Tama Tonga wrestling his final match in the company, what will be his lasting legacy in New Japan? What are your guys' favorite Tama Tonga match or moments in New Japan?
I really enjoyed him turning babyface and getting accepted into Hantai. I think the match with Tama Tonga is his best match. But
with Shingo, you mean?
I'm sorry, with Shingo. But I think that him beating Okada was a great moment in the G1 the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that his first World Tag League final against GBH with his brother was up there as like the first time I was like, oh shit, he's really great. And him helping form the Bullet Club and everything. And Tama Tonga is like, he was an integral guy to New Japan for all these years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the initial turn on the Elite was a really cool moment. The whole like firing squad thing and that turn, and I think that some of like the promos he was like cutting on Kenny was cool at the time. But yeah, the Okada win was big. I think the whole Bayface run was really great. Him and Tangaloa, they were one of the founding blocks of the tag division for the last several years in New Japan. And he's a top foreigner that came out of their dojo system that really did a lot for them. And hey, he bought me and Rich a beer in New York during WrestleMania weekend. So super cool dude.
Well, we've got 2 nights of Cork and Hall Road 2 action tomorrow, the 23rd, and then the 24th. I'm not going to run through the entire card, but the important matches at the top of the card. So we've got a singles match between Sho and Master Wato. And then the main event of tomorrow night's show is El Desperado versus Kanemaru for the IWGP Junior title. Any quick thoughts about those 2 matches?
I think Wato needs to win to kind of propel him, and then I'm sure Despy's going to retain, and then I could see Wato challenging Desperado.
I agree there, yeah. And then on the 24th, the big matches for that, we've got the never openweight 6-man tag team titles on the line as Okada, Ishii, and Tanahashi team up for what's presumably the last time to defend against the TMDK team of Kosei Fujita, Mikey Nichols, and Shane Haste. And then your main event is a special singles match between Ren Narita and Shota Umino, the blood feud that's been going on between these guys since World Tag League.
Yeah, the Never 6-man match is going to be very interesting because I think we all think it's a dead giveaway that TMDK is just going to win to get the belt off of Team Hall of Fame. But with Okada working 2 more dates, you could do the swerve finish here, have Team Hall of Fame retain, and then they drop it on one of those 2 Sapporo shows.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm looking forward to that.
And I think Umino needs to win, and that needs to catapult him into challenging for a title.
Definitely. We have the New Japan / CMLL lineups for Fantastic Mania that were revealed. It's going to run through from February 12th in Osaka and end with 2 nights in Korakuen Hall on February 18th and 19th. The first night is going to be headlined with Tanahashi teaming with Mystico and Mascara Dorada to take on Ultimo Guerrero, Stuka Jr., and Francesco Akira. As I mentioned earlier, Francesco Akira on the Rudo sides. Take note. February 16th in Nagoya and February 17th in Makurai. Faction tag team tournament's going to take place with Ultimo Guerrero and Stuka Jr. facing off against Teton and Bushi of LIJ. Stigma and Picasso will take on Volador Jr. and Magnus. And then the winner of these matches will advance to the finals the following day. The 2 losers will face off in a third place match on that day as well. Kamaitachi, Hiromu Takahashi's masked persona, will be wrestling in CMLL and will also be appearing on the tour in tag team matches. I don't know if that actually means that Hiromu will be donning the mask or if it means that he will be giving the mask to another talent and we might see them both on the tour together.
That's interesting. Yeah, initially I thought it was just going to be Hiromu wrestling as Kamatachi, but maybe he's going to create a new Kamatachi.
Possibly. And then highlights for the last 2 nights at Korakuen include Rocky Romero facing Volador Jr. and Soberano Jr. Versus Templario on February 18th. And then the final day of the tour, we're going to have Mascara Dorada versus Stuka Jr. and Mystico versus Ultimo Guerrero. And that is going to do it for those announcements. We got a couple quick news items. Windy City Riot is sold out for the current configuration. They did announce that they're going to open up new sections and release additional tickets. Most recently on the New Beginning show this past weekend, they said early part of this week. So by the time this show airs, they might have already opened up those tickets, but highly recommend if you want to go to that show, you get your tickets now because I think they're going to sell out. And I think with the configuration that they're looking to do, it could get all the way up to 7K. Not saying they're going to do 7K, but that's like the max possibility in this building, I think, with a wrestling configuration. Minoru Suzuki takes on Adam Copeland this Wednesday on Dynamite and will appear at MLW's Intimidation Games on February 29th. So Suzuki's still doing his thing in the States. Josh Alexander defeated Will Ospreay last Thursday on Impact. That match is now available on New Japan World. I heard it's fantastic, so I haven't seen it yet, but I'm hearing really, really great things. And then finally, Yuji Nagata faces Jacob Fatu, as well as Satoshi Kojima will challenge Alex Kane for the MLW title at MLW Super Fight on February 23rd.
Nice. I think let's push these questions to next week, and let's end here with recommended match of the week. So last week I recommended that we watch the IWGP Junior Tag Team title match they put up with American Dragon Bryan Danielson teaming up with Curryman, aka the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels, to defend the titles against Ryusuke Taguchi and Hiroki Goto from Hyper Battle 2004.
I'd never seen this match, and I watched it just prior to recording the show, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, bro, Bryan Danielson's fucking old. Like, we got him here with Christopher Danielson defending the junior titles against a young lion Goto and a young lion Taguchi, which were a pretty awesome team, by the way.
Yeah, they were pretty good. It was weird seeing a junior young lion Goto.
Yeah, I've seen quite a bit from the Inokiism period, and I've seen different times where guys wrestled as young lions, but that stuff just wasn't as accessible back then. And when you did get tapes, you didn't see as much from young lion matches. So, I can't recall too much from that period with them, but getting to see like a junior version of Goto, I mean, he was ripped, shredded guy. He was clearly like the bigger bruiser of the two in the match. But I did a little bit of digging, and like Taguchi was the senior of the team, and like literally a few days after this would go on to be entered into the Young Lion Cup and then eventually win the Young Lion Cup that year. And this team had actually already challenged, as Young Lions had already challenged for the junior title the year prior against Geto and Jado. So they clearly had high hopes for this team. And at first it was sort of worked very much so like sort of an elevated version of a Young Lion challenging established seniors sort of match. But then it kicked up into another gear and went a bit longer than I was expecting. And there's a lot of just really great back and forth action between, Daniels and Danielson versus these two guys. Some unexpected high flying from Goto as well as Taguchi, and some pretty awesome near falls. This was not like a blowaway match by any means, but it was super enjoyable, especially for just how interesting it was to see Young Lion versions of Taguchi and Goto. And they did the quintessential almost won the match, but gets broken up. And then down the stretch, we end up with Bryan Danielson hitting a massive flying headbutt off the top rope and picks the win over, I believe, Taguchi.
Yeah, it was a really fun matchup, and really just kind of a cool kind of like time capsule match to watch and kind of see who those guys were. Then you had Bryan Danielson, kind of that peak, ROH 2000 look, and Christopher Daniels as Curry Man that did the whole, he's hot, he's spicy, he tastes great, Curry Man. And so that was fun, and really good matchup. It's just one of those kind of hidden gem things that you watch. And
I'd go like 3.5+ on this.
Yeah,
I thought it was just a really, really awesome, enjoyable match. And when people say that nothing good was happening in New Japan during the Dark Ages, that's not true, because this was an awesome junior tag team match and the only successful title defense that Daniels and Curry Man ever had when they held the titles.
Yeah. Then you recommended Luke Jacobs and Ishii, the rematch from Rev Pro. I think it was Uprising or Epic Encounter, one of those shows.
It was from December 16th from the Crystal Palace, I believe, and this was fucking awesome.
Yeah, so I saw the first match live all in a weekend. This match was almost as great as that match. I think I went 4.75 on the all in weekend match, and I'm like 4.5 on this one, but this was like absolutely incredible stuff, and they picked up where they left off in August. They're throwing big chops, and it's your never style fighting spirit style of matchup where these guys are throwing bombs and firing up. And there was a nasty spot where Luke Jacobs had this nasty looking Death Valley driver dropped Ishii right on his head, and so they just went from there. And
that was like the scariest Death Valley driver. I would call it like a Death Valley spike. I don't even know what the fuck to call it. He landed perpendicular on his head, or actually my video quality wasn't the best, so I couldn't totally tell if he tucked, but like it looked like he got spiked straight on his head.
Yeah, that's what it looked like to me too. Like he went straight up on his head. So that was a scary moment there. But Ishii's Ishii, and it came back, fired up, had a big superplex spot, and that Ishii fired up from. And they're just throwing bombs, throwing big lariats, big chops. But in the end, Ishii was able to hit the brainbuster on Luke Jacobs. And it was a cool story too, because Luke Jacobs was kind of avenging all these losses that he had throughout the year. He defeated Ricky Knight Jr., and he was on the path to try and beat everybody that beat him that year. So Ishii was like next on his list, but he was not able to beat Ishii. But really great stuff here.
Yeah, I was really blown away with this match. And at first, I sort of thought like, okay, we're just seeing a standard Ishii style match. You fit in XYZ wrestler and he carries them to an incredible match. But it just kept turning up and turning up and turning up. And I mean, this was a lean, mean. I mean, I think they went 16, 17 minutes. It wasn't like the longest match in the world. But, both guys ended up kicking out at one, which apparently is extremely controversial thing to do nowadays. But the match was, I think that not only am I very impressed with Luke Jacobs, as I have been in the past, but I think Ishii must like working with him because he just gave him so fucking much. Like he must see something in the kid, because this match just ruled. And
Dude, the headbutts. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the headbutts and the fire up spots and the fighting spirit. Like this was like a really good like third match on like a 16th night of the G1 type of match where you're like, fuck, Ishii did it again. Like this was awesome. And if you haven't seen it, you need to go out of your way and definitely watch it. I'm 4.5 on this one for sure.
Nice. Yeah, me too. Do you have any recommendations for this week?
Yeah, you know what? I think we're going to go south of the border down to Reno, Mexico, CMLL. I mean, by the end of the year, maybe we wouldn't consider this one, but I think we should check out what's going on with newest signee, Soberano Jr. He had a match on December 22nd with Atlantis Jr. Hot off the, I think this was just after the World Tag League run. And, didn't they team together?
Yeah. Yes, they did. Yeah.
But in CMLL, they were feuding because of the heel turn. And I heard that this match was really great, sitting at an 8.5 on Cage Match. So I think we should check this one out. Atlantis Jr., Soberano Jr., December 22nd.
All right. And I think for me, we should make sure we watch Big Cope in Minoru Suzuki this Wednesday and talk about it next week.
Okay. Awesome.
All right. Well, that's going to...
What a cathartic show to get all this Okada stuff off of our chest.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens in the next coming days and weeks with Okada, where he's going to end up in the future.
Yeah, I hope that you guys appreciated our coverage because I feel like we dug deep on this one.
Yeah. Well, next week we'll be back to review the 2 Road 2 shows from Cork and Hall and preview the rest of the New Beginning tour. So if you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation. Visit socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong style logo. Make sure to connect with us on social media. On X, follow us at KI Strong Style. Follow the network at Social Suplex. Follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan on Facebook. Follow us at facebook.com/Social Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. Join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. Link in the description. You can email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. All Things Elite with Floyd Johnson Jr. and Austin Tomowitz. Imps WWE Adventure with The Implications, Matthew Mayer. Wrestling Art with Chris Things. Tunnel Talk with Ali, Ann, and Leah. And the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review, and we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keeping It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.